and you just let me know when it says on your end that we're live.
Oh, okay. It says it's starting.
Okay.
It's an orange.
It's a good sign.
It says live.
Okay. Well, we're finally here. It's part 2. I know that you guys have been waiting for a while. We've got some frantic messages over the last few months. So, yeah, we're going to finish it up. Avi, what's up?
What's up, buddy? My dudes and dudettes. It's been long postponed, the Kresser-Wilks debate part 2 analysis. Couple of announcements to make. So since part 1, a couple things have happened. First, quick correction from part 1. There was one meta-analysis of the homocysteine content vegans, where I said, in 2 cases, I said they imported the wrong relative risks. The first one was correct. The second one, slight error. They didn't import the wrong relative risk. They just listed the wrong relative risk. Because, I mean, not the relative risk, the homocysteine value. They didn't import the wrong one. They listed it incorrectly because of a technical error with their formatting. But with the heme iron one, all of that was correct. The wrong relative risks have been imported from the heme iron study that I spoke about. Speaking of which, I actually wrote to the journal because of it. So this was the heme iron meta-analysis that Kresser keeps citing to show that the relative risk is only statistically significant in American cohorts and not European cohorts. We went through in part 1 the problems with that and why that doesn't work. We also went through the wrong relative risk imports that were performed in that meta-analysis. And I actually wrote to the journal. I wrote a editorial to the journal just illustrating all of those errors. And it got published. It's getting published. It got accepted for publication. And so you can expect a either major correction, because the findings do change statistical significance. So either major correction or a flat-out retraction of that meta-analysis. So Kresser, if you are watching this, you might want to stop citing that meta-analysis.
You know Avi's going to be tweeting at Kresser about this. I do find it totally hilarious that, like, not only did we do this, like, ridiculously long video, you know, debunking all the garbage, it's like, oh, and by the way, we got your study retracted.
It's not retracted yet. It's actually still up. Read it while you can, while it's still up.
Did you mention the tracker? I was just fixing the settings.
Yeah. There's in the description in this video, you can actually track if you want to know when the publication will be available. I posted the accepted publications tracking for those who are interested. It's in the description here.
So is that all right? All the preamble?
That's all the preambles. Without further ado, let's quickly finish up this. We're gonna wrap it up pretty quickly. We're not going to do it on normal speed. We're going to try to blast through it.
Yeah.
But we're still going to go in depth.
We took some recommendations from you guys. So a lot of you were hating on our stream setup. We improved a little. There's still some problems. So there's a slight video limitation where you might notice my cursor occasionally being on Avi's face. We'll figure that out eventually. We're probably going to change some other aesthetic stuff, like maybe the boxes, make it nicer. And yeah, we've, as you're going to see now, if we go over to the Kresser video, we modified this. So the actual video, even though this is clearly fair use, and we won the last one for fair use, obviously, because this is just a big critique. So everything's unblurred on the original video. As some of you know, during our first stream, it kept getting hit by the YouTube algorithm, which was making our stream just black out. So we modified the pitch, we raised it a little bit, we sped up the video a little bit, and we put some filters on it. So not the most aesthetically pleasing, tiny bit harsh on the ears, but definitely audible, and this way it won't cut out. So if some of you guys have better ideas on how to do that, you let me know, but for now, this is what you're going to get. So yeah, let's, I've got it up on the screen, dude. Just play whenever you're ready.
Alrighty, here we go.
I know it's not.
There's many other meta-analyses, 2010, 15, we can look at them.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Can I
just
point out the one?
Let's look at those studies.
No, sure. But again, they're funded. They're including studies that are funded by industry, and so unless you.
All right, let's look at those studies. So we've moved past the NutriRex, and now we are on to the meta-analyses for meat consumption. He goes through 3 meta-analyses. So let's go into the study archives. Let's go to Meet Me at 3.
I'm there.
All right. So there are 3 meta-analyses that Kresser argues the red meat is not associated with cardiovascular disease. One's actually not a meta-analysis. One's a narrative review. The Bronzadio 2017 paper. It is a narrative review concluding red meat does not significantly increase cardiovascular risk when assumed in recommended doses. The brunt of the argument, so it's a lot of mechanistic speculation, but the brunt of the case is the cited meta-analyses to purport that conclusion was the classic Siri-Torino paper. That was a 2010 meta-analysis. For those who are not aware, that was one of the meta-analyses that Kresser used against Joel Kahn in the previous debate with saturated fat. So when we went through the obvious problems, 7 of the 16 studies included meta-analysis of CHD events, and 4 of the 8 studies, including meta-analysis of stroke events, were adjusted for serum cholesterol concentration. So remember, if you recall last time in the Kresser-Kahn analysis, we were talking about the overadjustment issue. Do you remember that at all, Isaac, when we were talking about overadjustment when they adjusted for serum cholesterol?
If you remind me the specifics, it might come back to me.
Sure. So basically, they imported relative risks from studies that, when they were looking at saturated fat and cardiovascular disease, they imported relative risk from studies that already controlled for the serum cholesterol levels. So the problem, the problem is
appreciating it right now,
the problem is they're controlling for the causal intermediary. So if saturated fat causes cardiovascular disease by increasing cholesterol levels, or specifically LDL, then if you control out for that, you're not going to actually get the outcome. You're not going to see the outcome there. You're not going to see the cardiovascular disease there. The analogy I made when we were going over the Kresser-Kahn debate is if I do studies when I, point a gun at you and shoot you, but I just control out for all the times where I was accurate, and I only include the studies that I missed, then you're not going to conclude that there's any increased relative risk of me pointing a gun and shooting at you with death. Yeah, so it's an overadjustment problem.
Okay, now I'm just looking at the Discord. I just want to make sure I'm tracking. So I'm in Meet Me at 3. Is there something specific that you want open from here right now?
You don't have to open these. A lot of these are, I already wrote out the issues with them. A lot of these are what we covered in the first debate.
Yeah, because Avi, I love covering things with you, but if you expect my mind to retain some high level nutrition debunk months after that, it's not happening.
Okay.
So I don't know if since we've already done it, if there's a point in me spending the time clarifying whatever you just said to a point that I fully understand it. I think if it's in the last video, we won't dwell on it. But yeah, any new stuff coming up, we'll make sure to fully hash.
Yeah, this is one of the ones we actually did thoroughly go over in the Kresser-Kahn debate. So basically, the general gist of it, it's a meta-analysis, saturated fat. So commonly cited meta-analysis, saturated fat. What it does, the main issue with it is of the studies that it includes, a good chunk of them adjust for serum cholesterol level, which is exactly what you don't want to do when you have an obvious moderator variable, or in the case of a accepted causal intermediary. Okay. The second that is listed is the Nika 2010 paper, and the issues of that were 4 studies. So this was a meta-analysis between red meat and cardiovascular disease. The issue is only 4 studies pooled assessing the relationship between red meat and cardiovascular disease. And then half of those studies were, again, adjusted for serum cholesterol / hyperlipidemia. So again, same problem, overadjustment, you're controlling for causal intermediaries. And the case can be made that if those were not adjusted for, then the effect sizes may be greater, and then that may change the overall meta-analytic summation. Not to mention there were only 4 studies that were included in the analysis. Interestingly enough, the third meta-analysis, which Kresser cites himself, that pooled more studies did find a statistically significant association between red meat and cardiovascular disease mortality. We can actually open that up, so we can open the third.
What? I'm tripping out here. So I see the second, Mika 2010.
Yeah.
Where's the
and then do you see the last link?
Oh, okay. It's just because you didn't put a title on Cambridge, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's open that, and then let's see how
Sure.
how faithful my OBS is. Yeah, it worked. Okay, sweet. Yeah, it's up on the screen. You want me to find
and then we
specific?
can go to, let's see, we can go to red meat and CVD mortality. So that would be, go to page 769. The pages are in the top right-hand corner.
Gotcha. Cool. 768.
Yeah, page 769.
And wait, what the? Oh,
769.
I see. 1 second, it's just going quickly. It sometimes alternates what corner. Look at that. Left corner. Over here, it's in the right corner. Okay, yeah, it's on the screen.
Yeah. So if you look at where they looked at red meat and CVD mortality in this meta-analysis, interestingly, he takes a quote from the meta-analysis to try to support his position, but if you actually look at the forest plot in the meta-analysis in red meat and CVD mortality, you actually do see that it's statistically significantly increased for red meat and CVD mortality. So that's one thing to point out. It's a little bit ironic.
I understand this. I'm looking at red meat and CVD mortality. Now he might need to give me the refresher on forest plots. Am I looking at the summation here, the overall, the
yes, that diamond, yeah.
And the diamond is on the dotted line. Where's the line for statistical significance?
The line for the null is the vertical line that is not dotted.
This is and it's like if the diamond touches that line, it's crossing it. Oh yeah. So if there's no touch, it's statistically significant.
Yeah.
Right. So it's statistically significant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. But again, like this is I think he just latched on. The reason he brought it up is he just latched on to one thing that the meta-analysis said.
What did they? So did they write something inaccurate in their text for the analysis, or did he just misunderstand something?
No, they were talking about. So they wrote like, hey, these results should be interpreted with caution due to high heterogeneity observed in most analyses, as well as the possibility of residual confounding. Well, yes, possibility of residual confounding and heterogeneity. These things exist in almost all prospective cohort studies. So he latched on, here, no significant associations were observed between consumption of any type of meat and ischemic heart disease mortality. The results of the present meta-analysis indicate that processed meat consumption could increase the risk of mortality from any cause in CVD, while red meat consumption is positively but weakly associated with CVD. And then it says these results should be interpreted with caution. So Kresser just kind of grabs onto that last bit. The results should be interpreted with caution due to high heterogeneity, which is everywhere, which is in a lot of places, and high possibility of residual confounding. I mean, possibility of residual confounding is present in all sorts of epidemiological studies. But he doesn't mention that they did find, he leaves out that the CVD mortality was statistically significant with red meat. So that was just a little bit ironic. We could continue.
Okay. All right. So are we going back to Discord?
Yep. Back to play. Yep. Video.
Oh, okay. Yep. 1 second. Go for it.
You can pass those out and say, is that
so
really
you're saying we can't rely on any study?
No, I didn't say that. That's the straw man.
Well, we're still going on industry funded memes. And Wilks is walking this back and saying, I'm not saying that we need to just only look at we can't rely on studies if they're not industry funded. But I mean, if he's not saying that, why does he continue to bring it up? I mean, you could bring it up, but if they're valid, they're valid. And we covered this in part 1.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I said that you would really need to look at the way in which a study is designed to see if it was viable, and you also have to replicate the studies. Like studies have to be replicated. And so what I'm saying is, can I just finish the last point now? Let you show as many studies as you want. Because again, you can show as many studies as you want. You can't prove that you're not handpicking them to suit your bias. You are the one that quoted this study. it shows that your finger's not on the pulse, because hundreds of like top scientists have written letters or joined in the same letter to the Annals of Internal Medicine asking for those studies to be retracted. And there's now an investigation into the Annals of Internal Medicine, yet you are citing
An
that study.
investigation doesn't prove, nothing has been
It doesn't prove
proven
anything,
yet,
but it
and
shows
I was aware of that controversy. And
It's amazing, by the way, the Annals of Internal Medicine and a quote-unquote investigation. What has come out with the critique of the Nutrirex papers from the Annals, on the Annals from other publications, it's really, they really missed the mark, I have to say. Like, a lot of the critiques of Nutrirex just haven't gone into the actual problems. Most of the overwhelming majority of the critique has been focused on conflicts of interest, unfortunately, and not in how the meta-analysis was performed. So if you actually want to go find the critique of the actual content instead of just whipping out COIs and measuring them, go to part 1. Last hour of part 1 from this video, we went over Nutrirex.
You can't even read forest plots. You're telling people what to eat.
The controversy is not surprising if red meat has been demonized for as long as it has been, and then a study comes out which exonerates it. It would be entirely expected that there would be controversy.
So, and do you know who that study was?
All right.
That's lovably speculative.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just talk about the content.
Exactly.
Yeah, just like why do we care?
It's funded by. Can you just look at slide 93? Just to show that. Anyway, so it's not just me saying this. I mean, the scientists who discredited the meat guidelines didn't report past food industry ties. So
because remember, most people are listening. Scientists who discredited meat guidelines didn't report past food industry ties. The lead researcher, Bradley C. Johnston, said he was not required to report his past relationship with a powerful industry trade group. I don't know what that trade group is, but if you scroll down.
Well, you can't scroll down to the slide.
Jim?
It's
a slide.
I can tell you, in the first one, the sugar one, it was that Pepsi and all this stuff, although they make they make a non-profit with a fancy-sounding name, and then they back it all with industry funding. Same with the meat study. That's why I don't understand why he'd use it. If you were being objective, like you're saying, there's other studies, but why name this one as though it's got validity? Because for example,
you feel like they concocted this study and released it right before your film specifically to try to take some of the window sales?
I think it's likely that it was tied into the film, but it doesn't matter whether it is.
I don't think so. I don't think that.
Who knows? I mean,
I mean, here's what you need to do to release a publication right after a film. You need to submit the paper far before the film gets released. You need to know how long it's going to get peer reviewed for. You need to know how long the publication process is going to take. You need to know all of those steps, calculate all that ahead in advance, and time it to line perfectly up so that it releases after.
I guess they can't have really any impact except when they submit their stuff for review.
Yeah, exactly. Because they can take, the journal can just take, the peer reviewers can take longer than anticipated or shorter than anticipated.
I now grant that that's very unlikely. That's like months and months before the fact. Like, well, if we... Yeah. Okay. So that's
unless you can get people on the inside, you get the peer reviewers on the inside, and then you get the people in the journal on the inside, and then you get the publication team on the inside. Like, this is getting like really conspiratorial.
Yeah. So we've we've kind of said the same thing multiple times, and we've talked to Wilks about this, and he agrees. Actually, he takes this criticism, like talking about whether it's industry funded, talking about like basically any of this kind of stuff. It doesn't really matter. All that really matters is the methodology. At best, things like that are like little cherries on top if they even pan out. And Wilks agrees with that. So I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
Showing that to consensus of the scientific researchers is against that study, that is calling for an investigation, that has asked for it to be retracted. The co-author of the paper
is the consensus against the study.
So consensus could be defined in different ways, but the overwhelming majority of people who are within that field are critical of Nutrirex.
How do we know that?
Yeah. How do I? So I don't. The only thing is I don't have a fully study on the consensus. but people who do examine red meat, like if you look at the backlash of it, there was far more.
So maybe we shouldn't say consensus.
Yeah,
maybe
we shouldn't.
just
Yeah,
say
we shouldn't.
That there
true.
is a substantial backlash from serious.
Technically
people.
speaking, we haven't done a poll on all the experts, but compared to when any other paper gets released, if you look at the backlash versus acceptance,
sure.
There's been a huge backlash. But unfortunately, the backlash is misplaced in my opinion.
Lots of subpar criticism. I saw you ripping on some other people on Twitter, some doctors who are making criticisms.
Yeah.
It seemed like you're basically saying your criticisms are kind of shite. Like there's good criticisms and you're not making them. That person got actually kind of offended at that. So I'll just say, like, listen, don't take it personally, guys. I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking your criticisms. It's your criticisms that are being attacked here. If you make bad ones, I'll point out that they're bad. And hopefully you make better ones. That's all. Yep.
The leadership team at NutriRex. He's the Vice Chancellor of Dean in Agriculture and Life Sciences at Texas A&M, right? Texas A&M is partnered with the Beef Checkoff Program, right? And as part of NOVAs. And this is also discussed in the New York Times, slide 94. And it goes a lot deeper than that. It actually goes back to Brazilian government.
So the Annals actually did make a correction about this conflict of interest. I didn't think it actually was like a huge deal. The amount of money that was funding the study was, I don't think it was even funding the study. I think it was just funding other work from him, and it was like a very low amount. But since it met the cutoff requirements for the journal, they had to correct it and disclose that conflict of interest. Mm-hmm. So, but again, like, why are we fighting the war on this level? It's
who cares? Methodology.
Yeah, come on.
Let's see slide 94.
Slide 94 is just talking about
Research group that discounted risks of red meat has ties to program partly backed by beef industry.
So anyway,
this doesn't necessarily mean what they're saying is incorrect, and this is where it gets slippery, right? Because if they found things that happen to be correct and they release it, but they release it from a shitty company that has said things in the past.
It's a shitty company that chose it, and it handpicked which studies it included in meta-analyses.
Because you've had plenty of time
I don't know if they handpicked which studies they included in meta-analyses. I went over the studies that they included in NutriRex, and to their credit, they were actually pretty broad. They were pretty broad in the studies they included. They included just about, they included a lot. If you look at the flow diagram of what they included and excluded, they ended up with probably one of the largest. I would actually say it's one of the largest meta-analyses on red meat that I've seen. So I don't know. I don't know what that's based on, that they cherry picked or hand picked it.
Explain this.
Yeah.
To get to your point, Chris, you agree with the the conclusion of that study, and you think that the evidence points that there's many studies that point to the idea that red meat is not in fact the culprit, and the culprit is when you're looking at these epidemiology studies that you're looking at the overall diet of these people and asking them, do they eat meat? You're not asking them what is the quality of the food they eat.
Yeah, so I agree that conflicts of interest are a problem, and the editorial that was published in Annals alongside of this study said. This is sure to be controversial, but it's based on the most comprehensive review of the evidence to date. Because that review is inclusive, those who seek to dispute it will be hard-pressed to find appropriate evidence. So,
and who wrote that?
The meta-analyses had studies covering millions of participants over 34 years. There are several other meta-analyses that have been done over the past few years. So I don't know the best way to show these because I've got them in a Google Doc. So 2017, let's see. If I can give you the title, Jamie, maybe you can.
That 2017 paper was the narrative review we just covered, by the way.
Google it or something. Contemporary review of the relationship between red meat consumption and cardiovascular risk. From that study, the review concluded, quote, recent findings demonstrated that despite the presence of heme iron and carnitine, red meat does not significantly increase cardiovascular risk when it is assumed in recommended dose. Okay,
so we went over that. The best cited things from there were the Ciritino paper and the Mika paper, and so we like that does not end up panning out. Ciritino. Okay, let's continue.
You have 2014 meta-analysis of 13 studies. There it is. Again, these are this one, Jamie, is called association between total processed red and white meat consumption all cause cardiovascular disease, heart disease, mortality. And this is a good example of what you were just saying, Joe. There was a slight increased association between red meat consumption and cardiovascular mortality.
Okay, he does mention it. That's good.
And then at the end, no significant associations observed between any type of meat and heart disease mortality. Results of the present meta-analysis indicate that processed meat consumption could increase mortality. These results should be interpreted with caution due to the high heterogeneity observed in most of the analyses, as well as the possibility of residual.
Okay, again, so heterogeneity and residual confounding are commonplace in observational studies. That doesn't mean valid inferences can't be inferred from them. All right, so yeah, and valid inferences can't be concluded from them.
Well, you don't want to infer an inference?
Yeah, no, sorry, yeah, I don't want to be... Okay.
Confounding, meaning healthy user bias. Lippy, in a meta-analysis of 11 studies of red meat consumption and heart disease, concluded that, quote, the current literature data does not support the existence of a clear relationship between a large...
Okay. Am I coming through clearly? Can you hear me, Isaac?
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
Okay.
Take of red meat,
this was
an increased risk of myocardial ischemia, and then...
okay, the Lippy study. So...
Discord?
Go to Discord. Or was it at 4?
Or was it at 4? Yep, I'm here. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You want me to open any of
so
those?
again, the Lippy 2015. I mean, we really don't.
Just let me know.
It's the
Anything you
same.
want me to open, just let me know.
They're there for like anyone who wants to check it out at this point because it's the same.
Okay,
he's just citing things where the same stupid problem applies again and again.
Sure.
Again, it's just another meta-analysis where for the pooled studies controlled for serum cholesterol or hypercholesterolemia. It's the same overadjustment problem. For those who may want to take the defense pathway of rejecting an association between cholesterol and red meat consumption, when the comparison diet is examined in randomized controlled trials, red meat does lead to less favorable cholesterol and LDL cholesterol and plant-based proteins. I have a meta-analysis over there for any of those who want to pick it out. Some other defense pathways are it's not LDL cholesterol, it's just oxidized LDL that matters. We can cover that at a later time. I don't believe that succeeds either. I think that also fails. There's a lot of LDL sophistry, but in any case, just you can't control out dietary cholesterol. You can't control out serum cholesterol. If you're going to do a study on red meat and CVD, what are you doing if you're controlling out for hypercholesterolemia? I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the analogy of doing a study on shooting people in the head and controlling every bullet.
controlling out the times that I'm accurate, and only including the trials where I missed, and then looking at the relative risk. It's an over. I mean, obviously, I'm using an extreme example, but the principled point is that you're clear. There's a reason to believe that there's an overadjustment problem here.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is one of the largest that was done. Let me give you the title of this, Jamie. Red and processed meat consumption and risk of incident coronary heart disease. That should bring it up. That's by Misha et al. Conclusion: consumption of processed disease.
Now, what's funny is that this paper is actually one of the papers that was cited from one of his previous papers. So, if we go back to Meet Me at 3, the Micha study was already in the Bronzadio review. So it's just, and we've already covered it. So again, 4 studies only, and half of those studies adjusted for serum cholesterol or hyperlipidemia again. So we have the same problem recurring.
Gotcha.
And diabetes. So there's a bunch of meta-analyses that have been done over the years that reach the same conclusion, and we could, look at the same. This is for heart disease, but there are also some for cancer. So it's not just that study.
And by the way, if you do want a robust meta-analysis that includes a bunch of studies that don't control for hyperlipidemia, again, go to the Nutrirex and look at our analyses of it. go to the Nutrix analysis and look at the effect sizes when you actually present them as a lifetime risk. Look at the effect sizes when you don't do 3 servings a day, when you actually do highest to lowest, and there you can see it. I mean, it's clear. So you can watch part 1, last hour part 1, if anyone wants to look at something truly robust.
There are many others as well.
There are many others.
Meta-analyses.
And there are meta-analyses on the other side. So you can present studies here so that the people
That's
listening...
true. There are meta-analyses on the other side.
Right, and
so
you can present the data for the people listening, and it appears like the preponderance evidence is that. But your guidelines for diet, they're not in alignment for saturated fat. They're not in diet for cholesterol. They're not in diet for the amount of carbohydrates for normal people. They're not in line with the consensus for carbohydrates for athletes.
I've said a range of carbohydrates could be appropriate for
but
people.
what I'm saying is you are not in alignment with the scientific consensus. And you claim that we cherry-picked in the film, right? But you handpicked studies to back up your bias. Not to mention that we've pointed out that the studies in those meta-analyses, some of them are heavily funded by industry, not saying that you should throw all those out, but you don't have the wherewithal to assess the studies in the meta-analysis because you point out yourself that you can't even read a forest plot. So he reads conclusions, right? He reads conclusions in writing, but has not looked at the actual data. So you haven't been able to establish.
Yeah. This very deadly point to be made. Right?
Yeah, he's still getting memes on from it.
Yeah, I mean, Kresser did just get humiliated here. It's also funny because he debated Khan, and he won. But then a guy who's not a doctor comes and just destroys him.
Yeah, well, Khan's peddling colloidal silver for the coronavirus right now, so yeah, or at least recommending it or advertising it. He's not getting money from it, but he's just making stupid recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows the difference, though, when you've got someone who is, even if they're making mistakes, trying their best to accurately represent the science versus someone who, must just have other motivations. Because I don't want to say Khan is just insanely incompetent. I mean, I don't know, maybe
yeah,
when you go on Twitter and directly point out to him what the problem is in a way that someone with his training should be able to understand, and he just doesn't care. I mean, I don't know. I get the vibe at that point. Crazy. Yeah, that the problem is probably to do with their goals. I mean, Wilks is trying to represent the science, and I'm not sure that that's Khan's goal anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure either. I'm not sure this is about truth for him. As sad as I am to say it. And again, Dr. Khan, if you're watching this, please take down that post. Please don't encourage people to drink silver.
Or just actually debate Avi, right?
Or debate me.
The guy's competent. You know full well we have an email exchange where we showed you how to debunk the points that you didn't know how to debunk, right? Avi's got a level of competence with this stuff that you don't. So you should be willing to engage him.
Yeah, anytime. Let me know anytime if you want to debate me or have a conversation with me about any of these claims you're making. I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Worst case, you just say you're wrong about something. What's the big deal? Yeah.
And by the way, if you do admit that you're wrong about something, you'll gain more respect for that.
Absolutely.
You're not gonna get less respect for that. You will gain respect, if anything. It's a sign of respect when someone's able to recognize when they're wrong and walk back from the claims that they're making.
Yep.
I was spent the first 1,000 hours. I would look at the whole paper, and then I would look at each author, and I would dig into each author to see where their funding was from.
I don't think that's necessary to me. That's kind of a funny thing to boast about doing. It's I appreciate you put in that much time, but it's just kind of a lot of time to put into something that's not actually essential to determine what makes sense or not. Holy shit, this glare is dead. I gotta shut that blind.
It could be essential. It depends. In some cases, it's going into the individual papers is actually relevant.
No, he said going into the doctors who are involved.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Going to the papers involved, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
going to the doctors involved, what? No, you don't do that. Okay.
It's kind of funny. It's I checked all of them and found out which ones are in
which ones had each conflict of interest from which
The thing I like about James is that now that he kind of appreciates why that's not that good a point, I know that he would be able to laugh at himself a bit, right? Like this good thing about him, he'll admit errors and imperfections in a way that a lot of people won't, which, you know, I just can't stop giving him credit for that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you plead.
But to be fair, like there are people who say way sillier things in an attempt to sound like they've done something scientific, like the carnivore dieters. I've collected hundreds of anecdotes. It's like,
oh my God.
Okay.
Yep. Or let's go out into the wilderness and let's see who lives longer.
Yeah, the B12 fungus adventure or whatever.
Oh my God! Or what? Or you can really get B12 from dirt, or you don't really may not need to take B12 supplements.
We just have to go like collect dirt samples from like obscure areas in Africa.
Yeah,
it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh God.
Okay,
so
yeah.
many.
If at any point you are considering going to sample your bits of dirt in obscure areas in Africa, like just consider the possibility that like maybe you're too committed.
Or maybe you're engaging in motivated reasoning and you might just be wrong here.
Like that's the kind of thing that, you know, my dad lives beside a guy who he's like PhD. He does he's some kind of like water research, looking at the purity of water, and it's like, this is his personal interest, you know, it's what he's studied to do. He goes and takes water. It's like, if you're just some random guy who's talking about, I'm going to go like fly to Africa to like sample the dirt. It's like, yeah, just, I don't know, dude. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, yeah. Twitter is a very,
like,
very weird
point I was
place.
just making is some people might have a legitimate reason to do that. But if you're not one of those people and you're talking about doing that, consider that maybe you're motivated. I think that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I point out in the Nutritional study, you know, when it was clearly invalid, the scientists...
Wait. Not clearly invalid.
That's right. He hasn't shown that the Nutritional study was clearly invalid.
Although it was clearly invalid.
It was, yes. I want to be clear. Like the Nutritional study, absolutely. The Nutritional Meadows papers were absolutely invalid.
People get confused by these things, so they'll be like, but you guys said it was invalid, so it is clearly invalid. It's like the difference between whether it is and whether it's been shown in the conversation.
Yeah. It has not. They're clearly invalid. They have not been shown to be invalid in this conversation.
I don't remember enough of the first conversation. I gotta smoke less weed. All right, let's continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree on that.
Yeah, thank you.
It wasn't representative of the scientific evidence. They handpicked the studies that were including. They used the grade.
He has not demonstrated that they handpicked them, or by what metric he's using to say that they've handpicked.
Methodology. Do you know what the grade methodology is?
He hasn't shown why the grade methodology is invalid to be used in nutrition.
Yeah, you got triggered
should
by
only
the
be
grade
used
criticisms.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And it was,
And do you think that's appropriate for, I can say, food rather than
according to
pharmaceuticals?
some nutrition organizations, it
Right,
is.
including, well, very few. It's not a scientific consensus. So
What is
The
the scientific
National
consensus?
Academy of... Let's
you want-
see here.
Is
It
there
just
not
basically they use the
consensus on grade? Do we know about that?
Okay, it's the same thing with consensus.
Okay.
Like you can look at different organizations that would say
we
different
shouldn't,
things.
we shouldn't make consensus
Yeah,
statements.
it's
when there's
very.
not-
Yeah, I know. It's like
agree-
really
I would-
weird to make people make weird. Yeah, I almost even did it too. Like we do weird consensus things.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is when you're in that area, you get a sense of what the prevailing kind of attitude among other experts is. So I can kind of understand it. But when we actually say this is the consensus, we should be careful because you can only say that when we actually have data on the consensus. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I can say I have a feel of what the consensus is, but I don't have anything.
Well, no, Avi, it's very important that you double down on your statement about consensus and like go search, the African soils for.
Yeah, I need to check the soils in Africa for the consensus.
Methodology that wasn't appropriate for looking at what they were looking at. It's just the same with the Siri-Torino and the Chowdhury studies. What they were looking for could never have been found. The association between saturated fat and cholesterol levels, it could never have been found based on the methodology that they used. But yeah, we still haven't got the protein. And
Let's go.
But wait a minute. What's it?
So it's absolutely true. I've never claimed that there aren't studies correlating red meat with
right,
poor
so you show
health outcomes.
you show the ones that you favor.
I never have claimed that, and I've said those studies are highly problematic for all of the reasons that I've talked about on the last show. Data collection, food frequency questionnaires, relative versus absolute risk, confounding not looking at physical activity, and the biggest confounder of all, not looking at diet quality. So,
I love to go to diet quality because I know you like to use Matt Lalonde's work, which has never been published, which obviously was built and.
I've not used Matt Lalonde's work in connection with diet quality. I'm talking about food patterns, like healthy food pattern.
In terms of nutrient density, which is a part of diet quality, you have referred to Matt Lalonde's work.
I'm happy to talk about that. I'm still talking about the research on red meat being problematic because it doesn't consider the overall diet pattern.
Right, but again, your views. First of all, you don't have the wherewithal to interpret the scientific evidence, which is very clear that you don't understand.
This comes up again.
He's just gonna keep like. Once he landed that forest plot point, it's just like, well, now he has a bludgeon. He's just gonna hit you with it for the rest. Like, just enjoy, have fun with a guy who can do that to you. But I mean, this is the thing, though. Like, Kresser somehow, I mean, was it because of people like Joe Rogan? What were there? I don't really know about Kresser's history and how he got to prominence. But Kresser is this guy who doesn't know how to actually read data, and somehow came to prominence talking about things that rely heavily on data, and that is a problem. And even if Wilks is using it like a bit of a bludgeon, and might kind of bring it up when it's not even directly relevant, just to whack him. It's like it's true, and it does basically totally undermine Kresser. And there's something funny about like Joe Rogan having him on and giving him all of this exposure, and like so many people taking his bullshit seriously that it's troubling. But to credit to Joe, he let this happen. So yeah.
Than forest plots. How can you be? You recognize that you have to look at the totality of evidence, and you have to be able to dig in and look at where the things are pointing. You yourself said, "I am not an expert in nutrition," and you said, and again, I'm not either. And which I don't even know why we're sitting here having this discussion. Honestly, like we should get some real experts in.
Well, we can do that too.
And I can, you can point on your side who you think the experts are, and I'll point on our side who we think the experts are. I mean, I don't even like to say sides really, because to me, it's not really.
So what is the deal there? Wilks has basically said to Rogan to get you on, or what?
Basically, at this point, I'm happy to go on with Wilks and debate whoever Joe Rogan wants to put against us. I think at this point, if an expert is put on, look, I've told him, like, listen, I've told James that if they get an expert, like as much reading as if you've done, you're not an expert.
By an expert, just to be clear, you're referring to someone who has like a PhD, basically.
Yeah, or an MD, or who has like extensively examined the literature.
Someone who, even if they're not right, is gonna just have so much auxiliary information that it's like they're just gonna be able to drag you into the weeds on a million things that you couldn't know about without proper, formal training.
Right, exactly. And so for that reason, I just advised him to actually, I don't think it would be a good idea for him to go on without an expert. And so,
I guess there's an expert who will remain nameless, unless it's okay to say their name, who, basically was to go on with Wilks again. And you basically told him something along the lines of like, James, you're right, but this guy's going to talk circles around you. Something. It basically is like as much as he knows, like without formal training, it wouldn't be a fair fight. And so what Wilks has said to Rogan is that if it's an expert like that,
I don't know what Wilks has said to Rogan. I know what he said to me. Like he said, like the vibe I've gotten from him is that he won't go on without me if that is the case.
Fair enough. If this results in you getting to just spank because frankly, you'd go on against the whole gamut. You'd say, sure.
I'd love to go on against the gamut.
Bring Baker, bring them all. I'll destroy them all in one conversation. Yeah. It can be 5-on-1, right? If
John and Baker would actually disagree on a lot of things themselves, but
sure.
No, you could bring the carnivore crew on all at once. I'll be happy to take them on.
And the funny thing is, you'd say the same thing about the vegan crew, who you now
bring the vegan crew,
the plant-based cabal.
Oh my god, bring the plant-based Dr. Joe Rogan, if you're watching this, please bring the plant-based Dr. Cabal on. And by that I mean Dr. Greger, Dr. Joel Kahn. You can throw Garth Davis up there with his IGF claims. Veg Source is not a doctor, but Jeff Nelson, you can throw him there.
Yeah.
Add a little Leucine.
For all you guys.
No oil. No,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can throw them all up on there. I'll be happy to 1v5.
the anti-oil sophistry from vegans
Oh.
is insane. It's actually like watching a bunch of crazy people. But
No, really, it
yeah.
is.
So for you guys watching, like, I mean, in case it's not obvious, no pun intended, Avi, takes issue with both sides. He just cares about accuracy. He's like, he's going to shit on the vegans as much as the carnivores, as much as people will call him, a vegan shill or whatever. So, oh, fuck, what was I about to say? Oh, yeah, so he's kind of now set his sights on what he calls the plant-based cabal, or the plant-based doctor cabal. So we're gonna do some videos kind of like this, but way shorter, where we're gonna do debunks on some of the medical sophistry that's getting spewed by vegan doctors. I know people. Who hasn't Unnatural Vegan called out some of it as much as everyone rips on?
Yeah,
hasn't
I think
on point with some of that stuff.
I think she has. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so anyway, we're going to do some of that. And we're also we're going to make a video dealing with the carnivore MD guy who keeps dodging off for debate.
Oh my god.
And it's not even like honorable dodging. Like, Khan's dodge is arguably more honorable. He's just like, nope, no interest in debating you. This guy tries to. It's like he postures like he's willing to have a debate.
Oh,
but,
yeah,
he won't.
Thumps that chest. That chest. Be like, oh, we'll do it soon. Let's go out to the wilderness and let's see who lives longer.
Yeah,
Bring
is
them
so
on.
stupid. That reminds me, fuck, we're just going to start riffing. We need to go back to the video. But that reminds me of that Michaela Peterson tweet where she said, we'll race our children. And then people started making memes of, like, the evidence hierarchy. And it's like, cohort studies, randomized controlled trials. And then at the very top, children racing. Okay, let's continue. But point is, we're gonna make videos on some of these crazy, carnivore medical people and vegan medical people. Also, Louis Ghetto, that guy's a massive sophist. That guy should debate you. He's in the chat right now. That guy just spews constant bullshit. Won't defend any of it. Right? Discord's open. When you're ready to uncook, Louis.
Whenever you're ready.
Yep. All right.
Whenever you're ready, buddy, my dude.
Let's continue.
Yep.
Some people in the chat send him the Discord link. Let's continue.
Yeah.
A lot better than the standard American diet. The opposition is really like the carnivores, right?
Well, your position, that's the opposite. Your position, though, is in defense of your film.
Yeah, I'm defending the film, and I think,
in response to his critique.
And how do you think I'm doing so far?
Well, with B12, it was a home run for sure.
Well, I think there's lots of other things, but
well, the thing about we still haven't really shown whether or not there's evidence. See, that's the problem with all the stuff we're dealing with these studies. It's so hard to figure out what's what. Are they doing drugs? Like, what is the overall health quality based on? So,
and that's why we look at scientific consensus.
Well, it's not why to look at scientific consensus. That's why it's why you should do an overall assessment of epidemiology and its concordance, or pointing at least in the same direction of effect size with randomized clinical trials. So there's ways of tackling the anti-epidemiology sophistry. Appealing to scientific consensus is not one of them.
Could you just bring up slide 1?
Do you agree with him, or you dispute what he's saying about scientific consensus?
Would you agree that you're not in line with scientific consensus?
My general dietary recommendations?
Yeah.
Probably some aspects of it, but not all aspects.
But generally, I mean, come on.
I don't think that's...
What do you think the scientific consensus, Chris? What do you think the scientific consensus is when it comes to dietary recommendations?
Well, it's changed a little bit in the past few years. It definitely was low fat, although that is changing a little bit.
I agree.
There's some recognition of different fats, may have different effects, etc. Would be limiting red meat, would be limiting saturated fat, limiting cholesterol, eating a lot of plants and whole foods, limiting sugar.
This is scientific consensus.
Yeah. Legumes
but hold on, please. What is that based on? What do you think that's based on?
That's based on, mostly observational research and then some mechanistic studies and some RCTs. But even RCTs, if you're comparing, again, like some of the studies that are cited, for example, in David Goldman's papers, they're comparing a standard American diet with a plant-based diet. So in a crossover trial.
I don't know how he knows that. I don't know how he knows you're comparing a standard American diet with a healthy plant-based diet. I hear this a lot. I always keep hearing like, "Oh, what you're doing is just comparing like that." You don't know that. You're speculating. It could be true. It could be not true, and it could be the opposite is true. It could be you're comparing potato chip vegans with the grass-fed organic meat. Like I don't see any analysis on any of these studies to conclude that bias points one way or the other. Certainly possible. It's possible you can have a healthy user bias, but just invoking a healthy user bias doesn't tell you the direction of the bias itself. You need some kind of auxiliary analysis to actually support that it points one way rather than another way. Because he's not just claiming uncertainty. That's the key. If he was just claiming uncertainty, that would be one thing, but he's not. He's saying actually the bias is there and the bias has a direction and this is the direction. That's a stronger claim.
Randomized trial, that's not comparing apples to apples. But anyways, to get back to your question, I would say about half of what I recommend is consistent. If we use the factors that I just said, eating whole foods and not eating processed and refined foods, limiting sugar, all of that. The areas where I differ are red meat, saturated fat, but not always. I think that's individual and depends on how people actually respond to saturated fats. In eggs and total fat content, depending on the person.
Legumes and grains?
I think they can be part of a healthy diet if they're well tolerated.
And you do think that like the research has shown a whole food plant-based diet versus standard American diet, people are getting improvements on that?
Yeah.
I think everybody.
I definitely think there should be more
standard
studies.
American
Yeah,
diet.
I mean, some people I found don't do well with grains and legumes, especially people with digestive issues. So, for them, maybe not. But I've never argued that grains and legumes. I'm not a strict paleo kind of advocate.
And you pointed out last time, it was one of Patrick that talked about it too. Obviously, I watch your podcast. And, you pointed out about these hormetic stressors that we talked about earlier. And so, there's people that are talking about anti-nutrients in food. They really don't know what they're talking about.
That's a red herring.
Right.
Yeah, because
they don't know what they're talking about. Right. And it's a really common thing. And they're basically...
At one point in the future, I do want to go over anti-nutrients. I do want to go over like things like phytate and zinc homeostasis especially.
Okay.
But that's for a later time. Yeah. Later time.
Look, the landscape of food is enormous. The landscape of dietary requirements and of health, it's enormous. And, just you talking about spending thousands and thousands of hours combing over this research can attest to that.
Yeah.
And Chris, I think you can as well. I mean, this is a very complicated issue, and there's a certain amount of bio variability. Different people have different physical requirements, different nutritional requirements. But I think we're trying to zoom in on what is actually bad for you and what is actually good for you. I think we agree on. I think we all agree. Everyone here agrees that you basically need a certain amount of vegetables in your diet. You need vitamins, whether you can get those vitamins from supplements like B12 supplements or whether you can get it from natural food you eat. I think we're all in agreement on.
Sure.
I think where we disagree on is whether or not red meat is bad for you and what kind of red meat we're talking about and why is it bad and what is it bad when it sits alone, or is it bad when you're eating it with vegetables, which is what we're recommending in the first place? So if we're recommending that you eat it with vegetables, and these vegetables do have this sort of balancing effect of the negative aspects or the perceived negative aspects, even though there's no evidence that those negative aspects when eaten by itself, because we don't really have long-term studies on carnivore diet people. So I think mostly we're in agreement here. You're defending your film, and rightly so.
I think there was a bunch of claims that were untrue.
Well, and clearly you've proven with the B12 issue that he said some things that made you look like you were saying things that were inaccurate and uninformed.
And he's done that with a bunch of other things too, though.
Okay.
And so he did it with protein.
Let's go to protein next.
Before we get to that, can I just show what the consensus actually is on diet?
Yes.
Okay, so can you just bring up slide 1? And I mentioned this earlier, but I didn't show it. So the World Health Organization recommends that people eat a nutritious diet based on a variety of foods originating mainly from plants rather than animals, which you said you could agree with, right? Because it's like not vegan necessarily, like mainly from plants.
Yeah, I mean the proportions are a question mark there, depending on.
And then the actually slide 3 would be the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations.
Appropriately planned vegetarian, including
This is Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Okay. Appropriately planned vegetarian, including vegan diets are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits for the prevention and treatment of certain diseases. That's a weird. Appropriately planned is a weird way of phrasing it.
Well, it is, and it's also a little bit unfair because it sort of says like, well, if you eat an omnivorous diet, it doesn't need to be appropriately planned. Eat whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But anyway.
These diets are appropriate for all stages of the life cycle, including pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, adolescence, older adulthood, and for athletes. So these getting arrested because their babies are malnourished because they're following a vegan diet, appropriately planned is the key phrase.
Yeah, I would agree with
definitely.
that. I said that at the beginning of the last of the show. I acknowledge that they're very healthy, high-performing vegans. People on plant-based diets.
Right.
If they do it right.
If someone wanted to take your advice, would they have to do that right and plan that? Or would it just be like?
I think everybody agrees that you have to plan out.
Okay, we all agree you have to plan out. It's a good idea to plan out your diet. We all agree on that, whether you're doing a vegan diet or not. He's giving some. And then there's there's some academies, American Academy of Dietetics. There will be a consensus from them supporting vegan diet. There are some consensus statements being critical of the vegan diet from other consensus organizations. Let's cut to the data. I just really want this to cut to the data and just like we're arguing over consensus. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like if you want to exercise properly, you got to have a plan. If you want to eat properly, you got to have a plan, right?
Yes.
You got to plan to go to the grocery store. You got to plan to get the right foods.
There are some nutrients that are of, potentially bigger concern.
Let's show 2 more slides on the proofs of evidence. So slide 3.
But I completely agree with appropriately planned.
Okay, good. So we recognize that if you as long as
It's the same one.
no, the slide after that.
I meant for omnivores too. Like
there we go.
We want people to be thinking about what they're eating.
Totally.
And
we agree that
planning
most
it.
people are eating a bunch of crap.
So here we go. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the American Heart Association, and the 2015 and 2020 Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommend appropriately planned vegetarian diets for improved health.
That's a statement by Frank Hu, who is the current chair of nutrition at Harvard, looking at plant-based diets and cardiovascular health. And then slide 2 is the FAO. Sorry, I got the slides in the wrong order. It's the FAO. I don't know what messed up with the... It doesn't look like that on my page. Anyway, households should select predominantly plant-based diets, rich in a variety of vegetables and fruit, pulses and legumes, which again, a lot of people on the paleo diet would say is useless, and minimally processed starchy staple foods. The evidence that such diets will prevent or delay a significant proportion of non-communicable chronic diseases is consistent. So all I'm pointing out here is that you're not in line with the consensus of science, and that you don't have the ability to read the papers. That's all I'm pointing out.
I'm in line with pretty much everything that has been shown just then. There's only one of the paragraphs that you mentioned even mentioned animal products, and it didn't recommend excluding them entirely.
So you would point out that one, you agree that predominantly plant-based is the way to go, and that as long as you plan it appropriately, vegan diets can be helpful.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I said as much that vegan diets can be helpful
good.
on the first show if they're appropriately planned. And I don't know, predominantly plant-based. Again, if you look at the plate and we see mostly plants there and then animal products, then yes,
but
if we're talking about
bit disingenuous.
by calories, I don't,
So do you agree by calories then?
No.
Okay, so you're not in alignment with the scientific consensus again, though.
I'm not in alignment with that consensus.
So it's not on the predominantly getting your calories from plants, which is the scientific consensus. You're not with saturated fat and cholesterol and a bunch of other things, heme iron. But anyway, so can we go to protein? Because we're really here to defend his critiques of the film.
Yes.
Because, honestly, I've got people that watch the film, changed their diet, started feeling better, watched this podcast where he debunks the film, and then called me write me a message on Instagram saying you are full of shit.
You shouldn't read comments.
It was an Instagram, like a message.
Don't read that
But
either.
anyway, I'm just saying, it's a shame that you have someone that doesn't really have the capability to really...
Isaac reads comments. I see you going in there.
Oh man,
What's going on with the sophistry
it's
today?
Good advice. I don't see anything too bad right now. There was 2 sophists who showed up earlier. I don't know what the word is. Prevent them, or I don't think it's blocking. I don't know. Hide. I think it's hide.
Silenced.
I hid them. You can get your talking privileges back. See, here's a person right here. Is AY deleting comments already? Well, I mean, I'm deleting your comment. So, yeah, I mean, if I see you making criticism and refusing to actually defend it verbally, yes, you will lose commenting privilege on my channel. Absolutely. I am absolutely shameless about that. We expect you to honestly defend your point of view verbally. If you won't, if you just want to text cuck, you're gone. Deal with it.
understand the literature, coming on here and people buying into it, talking smack on the film where he made a bunch of factually wrong
Also,
comments. So I
for
think
the
let's get into
record,
protein
I've
for
seen
sure.
that name.
And this is also discussed in the New York
Ooh, you made me
Times,
skip.
slide
Where
94.
were we?
Oh, really?
Friday foods. Okay.
It's the same one.
No, the
Hold
slide
on,
after.
let me just
I
catch
meant
up.
for omnivores too. Like,
Here we go.
we want people to be thinking about what they're eating.
Totally.
And
And
planning,
we agree
planning.
that-
Okay. Yeah, what would you want to say?
Oh, it wasn't even that important. I was just gonna say that I know that guy's also a fucking foot soldier idiot. So, you know, yeah.
okay.
If you seriously stand by someone after the kind of performance he gave in the organic debate with Avi, or after he dodged my complete annihilation of him 23 times in a row by refusing to answer what the argument was for P4 or concede that he didn't have one. If you take someone like that seriously, there's something wrong with you. I mean, you're either motivated, you're just maybe an idiot. I don't know, but yeah. Let's continue though. Let's not get
All
derailed.
right.
Most people are eating a bunch of crap.
Just,
The one you agree that predominantly plant-based is. And again, I'm not even the one that's qualified. Like, if
all right.
I'm
We'll just go here. There's a bunch of nonsense in this part of the debate that isn't like gonna come. We'll get to the part where we can comment.
what do you think you would get if you had a real nutrition expert here? Like, I'm not qualified
I'd like
to
to
do
see
this.
it.
I would like to see it.
I would like to see it.
Okay, so can I just, your concerns with the protein, just make sure I'm understanding. Protein quantity and protein quality. And within protein quality, it would be the amino acid profile and the digestibility. Is that fair? Those are your issues with
Those
the
are the considerations
Okay,
of
cool.
protein
So
that
we're
I
on the
think
same,
are important.
We're on the same page for what we're discussing, right? So I just don't know where
And again, not saying that it's not possible to get enough protein
Are we
quantity
buffering?
Right.
and quality
No, it's good
and mix
over
of
here.
amino acids in if
Buffering
you're
mine.
really on it.
Right, but it's well planned, just like if any
Pause
other
it.
diet was well planned.
Yeah, I'll pause and.
Yeah, it's not buffering for me, dude. It's paused right
Right.
now.
All right, I'll have to skip and play.
I think it's less likely that you'll get protein right on a completely vegan diet without
Yeah, I agree.
than,
Like, look, I
than it
agree.
is on a diet that contains animal protein.
It's more
Okay.
complicated.
It's not more complicated. What it is if you just you don't know if you don't know what you're doing and you've been eating a certain way for 30 years and you suddenly take your meat off the plate and you only eat what was left on the plate, you're going to have a problem.
It's more complicated.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's why we put resources on our website.
The level of knowledge and understanding about that is pretty low, in my experience.
Right. No, I agree. That's why
So,
I agree. People need more resources to make better informed decisions about their health, about their exercise, and so on. I agree.
Which isn't that hard, by the way. There's plenty of vegan diets that can even be high protein. It's just weird that that vegans keep trying to make memes about high protein diets being harmful. Even we don't need to be doing things like that. It's perfectly fine to get high protein diets that are vegan. There are many ways of doing it, and there are many ways of doing it that aren't even hard.
What's your position on what he said about protein?
Okay, so I'm just quoting you from last time. Now, you really put me through a lot of hours of extra work. Now it's gone from like 3,000 to like 3,100, you know? Anyway, so there was just so much wrong with what you said that I just had to go into every single topic. But anyway. Flexes of 90% lean ground beef.
Okay, let's go. Well, I'll just play.
Do you think that animal fat is not good for you? Because all of a sudden now, Chris is...
That's not what he's saying. He's talking about protein content.
what was the statement in the film? No. The statement in the film
that's
was...
the most common.
No, it's not
go to the
actually.
store
It's not,
and can get-
it's not actually not.
It's 80 anywhere from and grass-fed beef, which is what I advocate.
Okay,
That's
great.
generally leaner.
Okay, great.
But he was specifically talking about protein content.
No, I know. That's what we're going to go into.
Right, okay.
So listen to...
Lean ground beef.
Okay, so basically what I had said, and I can't remember the exact words that I said, but I pretty much do, because I've recorded it a number of times. So 1 cup of cooked lentils or a peanut butter sandwich has about as much
Here we go. All right, we're gonna get into peanut butter gate soon.
protein as 3 ounces of beef or 3 large
what
eggs.
about individual,
That was what I said.
though?
Okay.
Oh, individual though. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, there was a individual. There was a claim. It was mentioned pretty briefly about biovariability, and I think Joe Rogan actually said this. But Kresser also made this claim.
You want me to open this up in the Discord?
Yeah. Let's go. Yeah, let's go to this one because we should hit the individual though.
Okay, got it open.
Yeah. So the idea was that Kresser claimed that saturated fat recommendations should be individual based due to presumed variability in individual responses to saturated fat. So if you look at the, so you can actually open the first paper and see if you have access to the full text.
It's opening up. Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay.
Okay,
Go to the
open this
charts.
up.
Go to figure 1.
One sec, let me get it open for everyone. Okay, where are we going? Figure 1?
Figure 1, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I got figure 1. You want me to...
And what you see here
pull
are
this
a
up?
bunch of different trials. You see a bunch of different trials and the blood cholesterol concentrations. These are cholesterol concentrations. These are not LDL concentrations, but in any case, you see a relationship between saturated fat intake and blood cholesterol concentrations. Now, people will look at this and go, "Oh, individual though, variability." You can see how like people are, there's, it's not lining up. So I mean, it's overall lining has a positive trend, but it's all over the place. Look at these scatter plots; they're just all over the place. There's variability though. So the issue with that, these are univariate equations. These are univariate regressions, and what they do is they don't take into account what other things are being replaced. But when you do take into account like things like MUFA, PUFA, things like carbohydrate, and you look at the relationship between saturated fat and LDL, you see a very tight relationship. And the specific meta-analysis for that, if we go back into the study archive, everyone should know about this one. It's the Menzies meta-analysis.
I'll open this up.
It's effects of saturated fatty acid on serum lipids and lipoprotein. Systematic review and regression analysis.
Yeah, I've got
And
it open.
so, and so where I want you to scroll to, the money figure right here.
What money?
It's going to be the money figure. It's going to be Annex 5. It's going to be page 36 on the document. The pages are on the bottom of the page.
36? Yeah, I got you.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
All right, so this is observed and predicted. So basically, when they ran these equations through, when they make it multivariate, when they control out for what's being replaced, for what saturated fat is replacing, they see that the observed LDL cholesterol response and it matches up with the predicted LDL cholesterol response. And each of these data points are individual trials. They're not people. However, these trials are small trials. They're and a lot of them go down to n equals single digit. So even if they're on the trial level, you would expect at least one of these to not be lined up so perfectly because they're small trials. They're not just they're not all n equals 100 and whatever people. Some of them go down to n equals 7, n equals 6. And a lot of them are n equals 10. So here's the thing. The thing is, what this tells us is people are not special snowflakes to saturated fat and LDL.
Yeah, clearly.
You're not unless you have familial hypercholesterolemia. Unless you have FH, you're not special snowflake. You're not going to respond. What's happening, if you do notice a different response, what's happening is you are responding differently because you have a different response to a different thing that you are replacing, whether it be carbohydrate or PUFA or MUFA. And that's causing the difference in LDL response. You are not responding differently to the monofactorial difference in saturated fat. That's not what you're responding differently. So you are not an individual, though. You're not an n equals 1 magical special snowflake. You are almost certainly just like everyone else with respect to saturated fat and LDL.
You are part of the line. Just accept it.
Exactly.
All right, back to the video.
All right, back to the video.
Okay. I might be off on a word, but that was what I said. Okay. I said about as much protein. Okay. So you go on to say 3 ounces of...
Okay. I'm getting a little feedback here. Are you getting feedback?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
90% lean ground beef.
All right,
Well,
now
what you did is you
good.
picked leaner beef. But, even though you don't advocate for that, you don't think that animal fat is bad. So what you did is you picked the leanest beef. Anyway, you say it has 24 grams of protein. I'm not sure what your source is.
But he does advocate for
Nutrition data.
grass-fed beef. Grass-fed beef is leaner.
I want a citation for that. I do want someone to defend the view that grass-fed beef actually is leaner than grain-fed beef. I'm sure you can get lean cuts for both of them. It may be true that on average it's leaner. I don't know how true that is. And if it is leaner, how leaner is it actually?
Yeah, that's totally a piece of folk wisdom that I've never actually seen proof of. Like everyone kind of says that, but is that actually the case?
Yeah. And and it's like one of those things with like PUFAs. Like people think like, oh, PUFAs are higher in grass-fed beef. Like, well, yes, but they're both like minuscule. Just just a ridiculous thing. It's just yeah, you have a drop instead of like a tenth of a drop. Like, okay, sure, as if that makes any difference.
Okay. So if he's talking about what he does advocate for, that does make sense. It's
right.
3 ounces of ground lean meat.
Okay, but the thing is, the point in the film.
What's the question?
Your camera is fun. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Most people weren't saying that.
Most people, yeah, exactly.
So you were saying,
I'm defending what we said in the film.
Right. So you were saying regular, standard American ground beef.
Has about as much. Like, it's about what we're trying to point. The point of this thing was not to say this is the best foods to eat. It was just say like the regular stuff that you eat, like a peanut butter sandwich. People think no protein at all, right? They think people think that plants have no protein. The first question you get asked, well, where do you get your protein? Right. So I said it's got about as much protein. So you say then, oh, and by the way, I'd listened to your 30-minute podcast trying to take down the film, which came out before you came on Joe's podcast, and you said that you sort of backed this up. I don't know. This happened like from one article, and it got spread and spread and spread. That someone said you need 5 tablespoons of peanut butter to get the same amount of protein. In what world does someone? And you changed your tune a little bit when you came on the podcast. But when I make a peanut butter sandwich, I use bread, 2 pieces of bread. How many? Like, is that you would use 2 pieces of bread and peanut butter sandwich?
I think that's what a sandwich
I think by
means.
definition, right?
Yes.
It's pretty much okay.
Sure.
So what you do on your
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to let them go through the calculation, and then we're going to go through our own calculation.
Okay, we'll just let them run.
Up.
Good old edited video. We can just play it. No black.
The podcast, you admit that a tablespoon of peanut butter is 4 grams, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And what is 4 times 5?
20.
Right. And then per USDA, how much is 1 piece of whole wheat bread?
4 or 5, depending on the source you look at.
I agree. How many pieces of bread? 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so 5 grams of protein in bread. The one that I actually have at home is 6 grams. So 5 plus 5 is?
10.
Plus 20 from the peanut Well, even on the leanest beef that you chose, it was 24 grams. Why did you say you needed 5 tablespoons of peanut butter? And I know how it came about. Because I think what you do is you take other people's work like Denise Minger and all these other people, you read their articles and you take their arguments, because some of the stuff that on your site is very reflective of people's other arguments on other sites. So there was something that started where people started saying you need 5 tablespoons of peanut butter. And in the first article it said without the bread. Now I don't know why you don't include bread when you make a sandwich, because I mean most people do. It's not just peanut butter. And I almost bought a peanut butter sandwich in here today to show you what 2 tablespoons of peanut butter looks like, or 2.5. Because the one I had, I looked at it, and it was just surprising. Like when you actually measure a real tablespoon, it's actually not that much.
Oh yeah, sure.
And like the mine, I figured out has.
That would have been a great prop. You can just imagine it's going off in the same kind of way, but with a peanut butter sandwich in his hand, just like, I brought the peanut butter sandwich, and I'm telling you, there's two tablespoons on this thing. It would have been maybe a helpful learning aid for Kresser.
Yeah. Yeah. People should know what a strict tablespoon looks like. A strict tablespoon of peanut butter is really not that much.
No, I mean, have people never cooked before? And also, the notion of a breadless peanut butter sandwich, like, I mean, isn't that a contradiction? Isn't breadless sandwich a contradiction? Doesn't sandwich entail, like, isn't it
if sandwich entails bread,
to have a sandwich without bread?
Unless you can have something other than bread being the bun.
At best, you might be able to say that an open-faced sandwich is logically possible, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Has about like 2.5 tablespoons and 2 pieces of bread. My bread has like 6 grams, but so my peanut butter sandwich has like 22 grams of protein. Anyway,
white bread would be more like 2 or 3 grams.
Yeah, but again, like we showed a piece of whole wheat bread on there. We're advocating eating mostly whole foods. That's a whole grain. No one is saying. We even said in the film, if we want to cherry pick, we just try and push plants. We said white sugar and white flour bad for you, associated with weight gain. Like carbohydrates from whole food sources are associated with better lean body mass, lower body fat percentage, and everything else. But anyway, so. I don't understand your math. What I think you did is you took that article, because articles that spread from that article forgot to put the bit in parentheses about without the 2 pieces of bread. So you take 5 tablespoons of peanut butter at 4 grams a piece, that's 20 grams, right? Which is around what beef
2 pieces of bread, 10 grams.
So why did 24 grams of your hand-picked lean beef, which you don't even necessarily, like, there's no reason that you should be picking that when that's not what we showed in the film. Why are you comparing 24 grams to 30 grams? Why didn't you say 4 tablespoons of peanut butter? Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Got it wrong again. Okay.
Got it wrong
again. Right, but imagine wrong again, holding the sandwich.
Got it wrong again. Oh yeah, like if he's actually holding
just
the sandwich.
Waving it.
Got it wrong. Got it wrong again, Chris. You got it wrong.
So, should we go into the? Oh yeah, okay. Are they still?
Oh yeah. They're not. I don't think they're done. No, they're not done.
All right, keep talking about peanut butter. We'll listen. We'll listen.
Yeah.
This is what it's frustrating when I watch the show because like every 5 minutes I'm hearing something that's just factually incorrect.
Well, that's why you're here.
That's why I'm here. Now, again, appreciate to both of you. So can we just look at actually the breakdown of all these? So 2 grams, but that's maybe a little bit more than.
The other argument was the quality of the protein.
We'll get to that, but quantity first. So if you go to bread on slide 5, well, I don't need to do this. You've agreed. Right. Okay. So and lentils, if you want to do slide 8. Oh no, sorry. What you haven't agreed on is I'm going to say 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and 2 pieces of bread. Okay. Fair enough.
Say for what?
I was going to say like, the comparison roughly. I mean, you can put a bit more peanut butter if you want.
Imagine if Kresser actually tried to haggle him on what constitutes a sandwich. Just like no, like 2 tablespoons. What are you talking about?
If he actually tried to
you're
like
really
get
pushing the envelope there.
3 tablespoons.
So can you just
3.5 tablespoons of peanut butter and 2 pieces of bread?
No.
Right?
No, I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you.
25.
I'm going to back up what I said in the film. So let's just go through the slides quickly. Okay. So slide 5, and apologies to all the listeners who don't get to see
That's
all my
okay.
slides.
Still tell them to go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So this is USDA. So I don't know where you get the numbers from, but I went to the USDA site. Unfortunately, it changed in October, so it's not quite the same as when we were making the film. But anyway, 1 slice of 5 grams of protein, and you accepted that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. The peanut butter, 2 tablespoons, 8 grams. You accepted that. You accept that 2 tablespoons of peanut butter has 8 grams.
Yeah.
Okay, we could have more. I have like more, but whatever.
Okay, here we go.
So you agree that 18 grams of protein for the peanut butter. That's the sandwich we showed in the film, whole wheat bread, peanut butter. Okay, so the next slide, and again, I'm being very conservative on this, like in the amounts. So now we look at lentils, 1 cup, 17.9 grams of protein. That is USDA again. Would you accept that?
Oh, I haven't looked at this, but
I mean, it's like
yeah,
I know that in the large, you can on the left side, 1 cup.
I accept USDA as absolutely.
Okay, good.
Of course.
But you accept USDA when it comes to this.
He doesn't need to. It's not the same. He's allowed to accept a measurement from USDA and not accept USDA recommendations for health. Like accepting this doesn't entail that he accepts recommendations from USDA for health.
Well, if we followed the unnatural vegan model of consistency, we'd understand that all statements have to be universally quantified. I mean, if you accept one thing from the USDA, you just accept everything from them, right? Actually, not enough people are going to get the technicalities of that joke to not think that's a straw man, so go watch my unnatural vegan video if you want to get it. Let's continue.
But not in terms of recommendations.
If we're talking about quantity of
Okay,
nutrients
cool. So we're on the same page.
Well, this is something that's been clearly measured. This is not something like recommendations.
No, okay, sure. So, but we're on the same page. We're taking this as a source. Okay, so now if we go to slide 9. Sorry, the one that you just had.
The one with the eggs.
18 grams of protein. What do you say so far? We've got about as much protein in the peanut butter sandwich. The 2 tablespoons, not the 5 that you
That's less. I mean, 18 is not 24.
No, I'm not saying. No, I'm getting to the beef. I'm saying so far what I have presented, just the 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, and it came to 18. I was really conservative, right? I could have put more peanut butter. I could have had bread that had more, like the one. I don't want to name the brand, but like 6 grams. Mm-hmm. But you'd admit that you can get bread that's got 6 grams of protein.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm being really conservative just to sort of prove a point. But so far, we've had a peanut butter sandwich with only 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. I mean, seriously, you try that at home, Joe. Like actually measure it with a measuring.
Yeah, well, I talked about it in the podcast. I'll tell you about 5.
Okay, so anyway, I probably would too.
3 large eggs.
3 large eggs. Okay, so
18 grams.
So now we go to organic. This is organic ground beef. Standard organic ground beef.
3 ounces.
So 3 ounces is 17.5 grams. If you want
extra non-vegan ground.
If you want to get in.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's per 100 grams, so I can. If you want,
What's the fat percentage?
9.2 grams.
So it's half.
Sorry, it's 9.2 grams per 100 grams. See, we had to do the calculation.
Oh.
But that.
Okay.
But this is the regular organic ground beef. If you
So
go
it's in the neighborhood of.
And then, to be fair, because I knew you'd bring up a grass-fed beef, so that I found the lowest and the highest.
Okay.
Okay, so go to grass-fed beef, slide 11. 3 ounces. This is at the very low end, so this would probably be the fattiest meat. But you wouldn't be against animal fat, right?
Not typically. Depends on the person and their
But we're just talking
situation.
about protein here anyway.
Right.
So lowest, 14.4. On the highest end, I actually think my number, 18 grams. Okay, so peanut butter sandwich, 18 grams.
Notice they're doing ground beef. They're doing calculations on ground beef. We'll get to that later.
Lentils, 17.9. Can we round it up?
Yeah.
3 eggs, 18 grams. Okay.
3 ounces of beef, 18 grams at best.
Right. When I looked up grass-fed beef. Now,
So
if
it's
you go,
essentially
now,
saying
I'm
exactly
not
what you
saying.
said
I'm not saying if you
in
go with
film.
90% lean, you can have more protein. No doubt. So you can find protein that's got higher. I said about. I was trying to show
I said about.
that
I love it when he says that.
Yeah, I feel bad
Tell the myth.
for the guy.
Yeah. I do feel bad then. Like he did. It's true. He did say about, and then they got a little nitpicky. I said about.
that you know,
You can feel the frustration.
plants have no protein and animal foods have all this protein. So I've just shown you there. Now your second point was that the problem with his second point was the problem with the peanut butter sandwich to get 18 grams of protein. I think this is a fair point. You would have to eat 410 calories, right? So if you go to
Well,
slide
it was
15,
actually the more important point because I'm not necessarily, that may not be a problem for somebody who's training.
no. But I
is
just
the
want to talk.
DS
But protein.
score
No, I know. But can we
quality.
just go quantity? Can we finish quantity? First? So, so can you bring up slide 15? So you'd admit that you can get like a decent amount of protein. Your argument was you can get like percentage. So slide 15, the lentils for 18 grams of protein. Again, if you want to check this calculation, stop at any time. I'm fine. I've had this triple checked. Okay, 18 grams of protein, 231 calories. Okay, because you like point. I love that people like to point out the beef and then the peanut butter sandwich and try and compare those. Even though we were right on the protein, now you're trying to pick on the calories. So you didn't pick the lentils, which have 231 calories. The next one slide 15, has
which is about the same for beef.
which is about 210 calories. Grass-fed beef in the first instance, grass-fed beef in the first instance, slide 17, 275 calories. And that was on the one that wasn't so lean. And 70% lean beef. And I'm just pointing out there's different ranges. 417 calories for 18 grams of protein, right? So fatty meat, which you don't think fat, like the animal fat is bad, right?
No.
Okay.
Again,
He's talking about the protein percentage. There was less in my peanut. There was more protein percentage-wise in my peanut butter sandwich than there was in the green beef. And then the last, no, not the last one. Yeah, we could have picked something with less calories. So if we picked tempeh, for example, slide 19, 170 calories. So again, would you say?
But I think his argument was
No,
the argument was the quality of the protein.
No. There was two arguments.
The part of it was you would have to consume more calories.
Okay, but just before, can I just?
There were two things. There were three things actually. So number one, that there wouldn't be. You would have. Well, there were two things. First thing is you would have to consume a whole bunch of calories to get the amount of protein, and then two, the quality of the protein wasn't as.
Right. At one point, yeah. So the first part was you can't there's nowhere near as much protein. And then there was like, oh, it's based on the calories, so the percentage of protein is.
You would have to have more calories to get the same amount of protein.
Which is not true. You don't have to. You don't have to. Okay, so we made a mistake again.
That
So-
was not a central part of my argument.
No, but it was a part of it. It was a part of it,
quantity and
though.
quality.
Yeah, it was
were the
quantity
two.
and quality, and the.
Okay, so for peanut butter, I think that is. It's not to the degree that he made it to be, but it is. You do have to get more calories of it to get more protein. We'll go through the calculation.
I forgot
One
how
he was talking
fucking long they argued about this shit.
Yeah, me too.
And two things, you just can't get as much for you just can't get as much in that serving. They're totally wrong. You'd have to have 5 tablespoons of peanut butter. Totally wrong. Agree?
I agree that you
Okay,
don't have
thank
to
you.
have 5 tablespoons.
Okay, and then you also said that you'd have to have so many calories that you couldn't get it, and you were wrong again. Agree?
For the peanut butter sandwich or just in general?
Just in general, from plant foods. We could have picked lentils.
No, yeah, I agree that you
Okay,
don't
thank
need
you.
to have 600
Okay, so now-
calories of lentils.
Yeah, so can we get So this is from your site, 18 grams of protein, 410 calories. The funny thing is, I typed in recipes.
This was
And I
a
think
funny move, I have to say. This is a funny idea for James to decide to bring his own site up and hit him with his own recipes, hit him with his own. What was the other one? Kresser had used a study or had criticized James for using.
Oh, yeah,
a
that
study
was in part
he
one.
Opened
Yeah.
an ebook with or something.
Yeah, he opened an ebook with. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Although to be fair, in this case, I don't think he is using the recipe to get protein. He could just say that, well, my recipe doesn't meet the protein requirement, but that's not what my recipe is being recommended for. Whereas in your
that'd
case,
be a good weasel, I guess, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But in your case, when you're bringing this up, you are making the claim that you'll get the protein. So you are using it for protein requirements, whereas in my case, I never made the claim that I'm using this recipe for protein requirements. So Kresser should have responded with that, by the way. Kresser, if you're watching this, which you probably. But if you are, that would have been a good move to respond with.
This is either first or
Instead, you didn't, because he's kind of frazzled at this point.
He's very
Yeah,
frazzled.
he's very.
I think he's internally freaking out, to be honest. But
He gets.
Who knows?
He,
Can't read his mind.
All I do is pick the first 2 high protein recipes from your site because I didn't pick the soup or the salad because that'd be unfair. So I picked the first couple. So sweet potato and leek omelette, the protein coming from eggs, 18 grams of protein.
Oh wait, stop.
Yeah.
Wait, we might be wrong. Did Kresser advertise these as high protein recipes?
Oh, if he advertised as high protein recipes, I'm not sure. If he advertised it as high protein recipes, but again, he's advertising it high protein. Well, wait, he's advertising his high protein recipe. He's still not
advertising it as high protein, low calorie. Like, I don't know.
It's still actually low protein, high calorie compared to like the peanut butter sandwich there. So I don't know if he's advertising. Yeah, that's a fair point. If it's advertising as high protein. Okay, fine, fair enough.
One meal.
No.
So do you have an issue with the peanut butter sandwich having 410 calories?
No.
Okay, second one.
Like I said, that wasn't central to my point.
There was a
The
secondary
point
part-
is,
there was a
it's
secondary
harder to
argument.
get the same quantity.
Which is not. Which you just admit that it's not.
Quality.
Which
The
is
DS score.
We'll get to the DS score in a minute, and I will show that you were wrong again. So taro and bacon hash, slide 21. 18 grams of protein, 570 calories. If you want to go to your breakfast of champions, which I thought, for athletes, slide 22. And by the way, I took your data. I didn't take USDA. I assumed that you were not lying. So I took the totals from the bottom, but I standardized it for 18 grams of protein because we're just comparing everything percentage-wise. 688 calories. Do you think that people should not eat that meal?
It depends on who you're talking about, but no.
But it's
I
low,
don't
it's
think
low
that
protein.
people
It's
should-
low protein, right?
I don't think that people shouldn't eat it. And
Is
we're
it-
talking
is it
about
low protein?
You can't
Relatively
rely
in
on
relation
that for
to
your.
the
You can't rely on that for your protein.
Right, so first of all, it's low protein by like most people. But your standards of protein are much higher. So that would be far off. So that would mean to make up for the rest of the day, you would have to have meals that were like almost just protein, or maybe they'd have to buy the protein powder from your website in order to make that up. Anyway, so let's move on to now the, and by the way, slide 23, largest study ever done comparing completely plant-based eaters with,
All right, let's go through the peanut butter gate calculation.
Okay, prepare for peanut butter game.
All right.
Here we go.
Okay, so here's where we should always remember where things start off when we go through all of this. So let's go to the top. Look at what.
To be fair, they did just listen to like 15 minutes of these guys going on about peanut. I don't know how much they can specifically remember, but yeah, whatever. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's try to keep in mind where this all started from. So let's go back to the beginning. So this first image of it was the beginning. So this was from the Netflix documentary Game Changers, timestamp 1530, where the claim was 1 cup of cooked lentils or a peanut butter sandwich has about as much protein as 3 ounces of beef or 3 large eggs. And let's see what's depicted. So what is depicted here? That looks like a cup of lentils. This looks like a peanut butter sandwich, whole wheat peanut butter sandwich. And then the beef that's depicted in the documentary is not ground beef, by the way. It is a steak. It is a non-cooked steak. That's important. We'll get to why that is later. It's a raw steak, and it looks pretty lean.
Oh,
right?
the
So
ratio of protein goes up after cooking? Yeah, okay.
So yeah. After cooking, it goes up
Sure.
because the water weight goes down.
I took that bio course, Avi.
Yeah, good job. Hey, Isaac,
Yeah, no.
moving up in the world.
Right.
Okay, so the film depicts whole wheat protein, whole wheat peanut butter sandwich and raw lean steak. This could be either I don't know what kind of steak it is. It's a round steak or a skirt steak. I have no idea. But it's lean, it's raw. And Kresser's claim in the original Debunk before this debate was you have to have 5 tablespoons of peanut butter in that sandwich to equal 5 ounces.
3 ounces.
And that's 3 ounces of beef. And that's 600 calories versus 200 calories from the ground beef. Timestamp for that is 11 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then we can take a look at this picture of Chris Kresser, show it to the audience when he makes that claim. So you'll notice a couple of things. Yeah, you'll notice a couple of things. So you notice, first of all, you notice how it says ground beef, 3 ounces?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somehow what the film depicted, which was... Somehow what the film depicted, which was a steak, somehow just turned into ground beef. I don't know how that transition got made. But when Kresser was making his debunk, like somehow it just got translated. Somehow it just became ground beef. I don't know how that happened. So he was the one to change it to ground beef. It wasn't Wilks.
Switch to the ground beef steelman there.
Yeah, which is it's not even it's weird that he switched it to ground beef because ground beef doesn't do as well as a steak in terms of protein.
Wait. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's not even helpful to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't even help him. I don't know why he did that. He's making his case worse. Yeah, it really weird. Yeah, you're making it bad for yourself, Chris. You don't need to do that unless you're trying to set up a steelman, but I don't think that's not in your nature to do that. You'll also notice how happy he
does look very content. He looks like he knows he's got you.
Yeah, exactly. This is what he looks like before back when he still had self-esteem before this debate. And So it's important to notice that these two claims are actually different comparisons. One claim is comparing a peanut butter sandwich to 3 ounces of raw steak, and the other claim is comparing a peanut butter sandwich to 3 ounces of ground beef. So what we're going to do is we're going to examine both. Okay. So for peanut butter, and these are just my the USDA sources that I've used. For peanut butter, protein was 3.55 grams per tablespoon. And the calories were 95.7 calories per tablespoon. For whole wheat bread, pre-sliced, medium, or regular size, the protein was 4.48 grams per slice, and calories is 90.7 per slice. For beef, grass-fed strip steaks, lean only raw, protein was 19.5. Notice how I'm doing it raw because that's what was depicted in the film. That's the original claim. 19.575 grams per 3 ounces. Calories was 99.3 ounces. So the values are low because the starting mass has more water weight since it's raw and not cooked. So evaluating how many more tablespoons we would need in a peanut butter sandwich to get the amount of protein. And here's my calculation that I've done. And you end up with around 3 tablespoons, about 3 tablespoons of peanut butter on the comparison that Wilks specifically made in the Game Changers. So if we look at the raw steak, not the ground beef, if we look at the raw steak, then we get about 3 tablespoons. If we look at the switcheroo, which actually, now that I'm looking at it, is better for him because it's not raw. Maybe that's why he went to ground beef, because no one serves ground beef raw. So you actually end up with more protein in the ground beef. So somehow we got to a 90% lean ground beef switch, which wasn't what the film was talking about. But let's just examine Kresser's version of it. For that, ground beef, you have 90% lean meat, 10% fat, low cooked and baked. And protein, we have 22.6 grams per ounce, and calories 182 per ounce. So the tablespoons of peanut butter required to match that protein content is about 3.5 tablespoons, so slightly more. In both cases, they're below 5. Both cases, they're below 4. But you'll notice that with the little ground beef switch, you end up getting a little bit more peanut butter required because it's and not as the raw is depicted. So maybe that's where the bait and switch came from. I don't know, but either way, we examine both. Either way, it doesn't get you up to 5. What is true is you do need more. It does take more calories, but again, that's not required on the vegan diet. I don't want anyone getting that impression. It's just using an example of peanut butter.
Yeah, you can just have a peanut butter sandwich without the bread.
There are other options available. There's tofu, there's tempeh, there are other options available if your goal is low calories, high protein.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, loud and clear, dude. All right, back to the video.
Yeah.
Study showing plant eaters versus meat eaters.
75 grams a day?
That was the average.
Aren't you supposed to have 1 gram per pound of body weight?
No. That's at the upper end for athletes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's 0.8 grams. It's 0.8 grams. This is how much they were actually getting. The largest study ever done comparing plant-based eaters. So you can see it's about the same. And actually, per pound of lean body mass, fat-free mass, the vegans were getting slightly more because they had better.
Yeah, that is true. and he knows it's true because I told him the night before the debate.
Do we need to open
That's the
Discord
point.
here?
Yeah. We don't. We already went through this.
All right.
Actually, we didn't go through it, but this is from the original debunk of my original response to the original debunk.
Okay. Well, we don't
Which
have
on
to
They basically, we don't have to go through that.
Yeah,
but the point is
we
that
don't want to create double over with their original video. I think.
Exactly. It wasn't it wasn't the original video. This was my
part one.
Put together. Yeah, it was my put together of the original debunk. Basically, it just goes over that study and it just approximates it estimates what the protein intake per kilogram of body weight would be for average vegans compared to average omnivore. Mm-hmm. And ironically, per kilogram of body weight, vegans are actually getting more protein. Your average vegan gets more protein per kilogram of body weight compared to your average omnivore. And the reason for that is because vegans are just lower body weight.
Fat.
Yeah.
All right, Avi,
body mass index looks like mean.
I am just going to take a piss, so I'm going to leave it to you. Just going to mute.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay.
But anyway, just want to say it's roughly similar. So your next argument was that athletes need more protein. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, no, it wasn't an argument because you admitted that I pointed it out in the show.
Yeah.
So if you go to slide 24, I just want to point about the amount that we're actually requiring.
Okay, we're going into the amount now.
We're in amount for athletes because his point is like maybe you can get enough to survive but not to be an athlete. So I'm going to look at.
I don't think there's a different requirement.
No.
For athletes.
Yeah, there's a different requirement.
No, just to survive.
We weren't arguing on this point. Your point is you need more. His recommendations, though, what he does is he pushes them to a really high end that isn't consensus, showing that then trying to make it out that it'd be harder to get, which we've already shown you can get enough protein for of course, an athlete eats more calories, therefore they get more protein as a percentage. So I just wanted to show two positions on this, and then we can see if you don't agree with the consensus of science. So this is the joint position paper of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the Dietitians of Canada, and the American College of Sports Medicine. So this is for athletes, okay? This is just one. I'm going to show you another in a second. Do you want to read it out, Joe? Because
sure.
I might get bored of my voice.
Current data suggests that dietary protein intake necessary to support metabolic adaptation, repair, remodeling, and for protein turnover generally ranges from 1.2 to 2.0 grams per kilograms per day.
Okay, and then the next slide, Jamie, if you could bring up slide 25.
I agree with that and have it in my...
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay. Protein supplementation beyond a total daily protein intake of 1.2 grams kilograms a day.
Wait.
Is the wrong one?
Where are you reading that?
From the big square.
Protein you said 1.2.
No, I said 1.6. Didn't I?
Okay. No, you said 1.2 to 2 grams.
He did say 1 point. Whatever.
Read the thing from the last thing.
Did I really do that?
That's pretty genius.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay. So
this is what was in front of me, right?
Can you read it again? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I read 1.6. I didn't. That's what you heard? You heard 1.6?
Oh, maybe. I thought you said 1.2 to 2.
Oh, well, no worries.
Anyway,
Either
whatever.
way, no
so
worries.
Can you just
protein supplementation beyond a total daily protein intake of 1.6.
The squiggle means about.
Oh, okay. About 1.6 grams kilograms a day during RET.
That's resistance exercise training.
Provided no further benefit on gains in muscle mass or strength.
And these are like really highly. And if you look at the, I'm not going to stick to 1.6.
Per kilogram. A kilogram is 2 pounds of body weight.
2.2.
2.2. So we're 1.6 grams. So it's less than 1 gram.
It's 0.727272 grams per pound. If you want.
So you're looking at about 3/4 of a gram per pound recommended.
So what they're trying to do here, what the study that's being brought up is they're trying to.
Avi, your camera's. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. They're trying to approximate what your breaking point is for an athlete that's trying to build muscle. And by breaking point, I mean when you look at total protein intake for grams per kilogram per day, and you look at the change in fat-free mass in kilograms, you get a curve that kind of looks like this. So at first you see, okay, there's more protein you're taking in a day, you're getting more increase in your fat-free mass a day, and then it kind of levels out. And so there gets to be a point where you don't actually get any more fat-free mass in kilograms when you're increasing your protein intake per grams per kilogram a day. And the point estimate for that break point is about 1.6 grams per kilogram per day. But there's a confidence interval for that point estimate. And I think it goes anywhere from like the 95% confidence interval is like 1.03 to 2.2 or something like that. So there's a range. So people try to play it safe and go with the 2.2 grams per kilogram per day for protein when they're trying to put on muscle. We'll get into that.
Anything over that provided no gains.
Yeah, but I want to clarify. So you can see the the two-phase breakpoint analysis on the top right, this chart.
Yes.
In fact, let's show this to the viewers. Go to the breaking point in Discord.
Yep. 1 second. Discord.
Yeah.
And the breaking point. So we went over vegans and omnivore protein intake. Is there anything worth covering there?
Yeah. No. We spoke about that.
Okay.
This is just a minor point.
Okay.
So go look at the graph.
Mm-hmm. Graphs up.
Yep. So look at you. So these are the point. You see the scatter plot. These are the estimates for the change in fat-free mass to protein, total protein intake in grams per kilogram a day. And so just so everyone can see, what you see is there's this break point. There's a point where like a increase in this relationship becomes kind of flatlines. You see what they're talking about?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so they're trying to estimate where that is. So where do you get to the point where there's at some point an increase in protein intake doesn't actually give you an increase in fat-free mass? And the point estimate for that in this case was about 1.6. But there's a confidence to that estimate. The 95% confidence interval in this case was 1.03 to 2.2. And so there's really no downside to taking in more protein. So the argument would be, well, you might as well go to the upper limit of the 95% confidence interval and just take in 2.2 grams per kilogram per day. Okay. Everyone understand that?
Yeah, I don't understand what it's in response to. I understand the point. The breaking point's at 1 point, a little over 1.6, but the confidence interval's a bigger range than that. Just go to the top of the range. There's no harm done. Yeah. I get that. Yeah. But what's that in response to?
Oh no, that's just what's being shown. He's just showing like, okay, well, how much protein do athletes really need?
Oh, okay, sure. All right, back to the video.
Yeah, back to the video.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see as the chart goes up and then it flattens out. There was no further gains in fat-free mass, which is the y-axis, after 1.6. However, there's something called a confidence interval. Like, how confident are they that these findings are correct? And it was a very wide confidence interval. So it actually there was 6 grams either side. So it was actually up to 2.2 and down as low as 1. So it's 1 to 2.2. The other one, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and the Academy Forceman is 1.2 to 2. So the widest range is 1 to 2.2.
So you think that this like recommendation that's a standard thing that you hear in a gym, 1 gram per pound of body, it's probably just
no, that's legit. That's legit at the upper end. So 2.2 grams on the upper end. The 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day is 1 gram per pound of body weight. So no doubt, and this is what you're talking about, certain athletes like bodybuilders, strength athletes. And the confidence interval means to apply to everybody. Some people could actually build and this is about optimally building muscle as fast as possible.
Right.
And some people could do it at 1 gram. Some people might 2.2, but like regularly it looked like 1.6, 1.8. Like the scientific consensus is that, and you said that you agree with these ranges of the scientific consensus.
And there's some evidence suggesting that higher amounts may be beneficial. So if you go to, or Jamie, if you search for examine.com, how much protein do you need? There's an article there. And examine.com is do you know about them? So
I know who they are.
A panel of scientists, or a group of scientists.
A group of scientists, right. Not the American College of Sports Medicine.
So the indicator amino acid oxidation method, which is newer. If you scroll down, Jamie, to the optimal daily protein intake for athletes, or if you just click on that, you see in that paragraph, IAO studies in athletes found different numbers because 4 of the 49 studies in the meta-analysis that had that range, lower range, were conducted in people with resistance training experience. The other 45 were newbies. IAO studies found different numbers. Female athletes required 1.4 to 1.7. Male endurance 2.1 to 2.7. Amateur male bodybuilders.
It seems the same. It says the average amount of protein required
he's probably going to get some higher ones.
Maximize lean mass is about 1.6 grams per kilogram. It's the same exact.
It's like we don't even need to argue it. It's like totally accepted in the sports world, like whatever.
But it also says some people need upwards of 2.2 grams per kilogram. For those interested in comprehensive breakdown, it provides another link.
So I don't think
we're in the
off.
range.
We're not far off on this.
It says regular training, some male endurance athletes perform 2.1 to 2.7 grams per kilogram. So that's the high range.
Yeah, and so and you did say something about 2.3 to 3.3 in one. Remember in one study you pointed out.
That was just doesn't actually help you build more muscle mass, but if you're trying to lean out.
Yeah, and also I think some.
Okay, so let's go to that. So go to examine.com though. Okay, so this is the link to the examine.com article that to argue that athletes may need even higher protein intake. The central argument for consuming protein intakes at 3.3, so this is even higher, 3.3 grams per kilogram per day, is that while it may not build muscle to a greater degree than 1.8 to 2.6 grams per kilogram per day, it may result in less fat gain. So the first paper that Examine.com cites is just a narrative review, which discusses mixed results. The second paper that's cited is listed here as well in the Discord. The key issue I had with that was 78 and 93% of the of the two different groups, the normal protein and high protein group subject, were compliant with the training program. So there was different compliance rates with the training program. So, and they measure that by showing an increase in volume load over the course of the treatment period. So it's unclear if the improvements were due to additional protein or they were due to just superior compliance with the training program. So the issue is the high protein group in that case. Yes, so it's true. There was no difference in fat-free mass that was put on, but there was a difference in fat gain that was put on. But however, there was also a difference in training compliance. And the high protein group had a greater training compliance than the normal protein group. So right. I'm not sure.
There's like two variables and you can't attribute it to one or the other. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And now to Examine.com's credit, they do mention that there was a randomized crossover trial with the same methodology that didn't find this effect at all. And that there was no benefit in consuming that amount, 3.3 grams per kilogram a day of protein. So, overall, the results are mixed, problematic, and inconclusive. That being said, I don't actually see a problem with 3.3 grams per kilogram per day. I don't think it's cause anyone harm. I don't think it's going to harm your kidneys. But will it be beneficial? I can't really say that it'll be beneficial either. So, and you can do this again. I think you can do 3.3 grams per kilogram per day on a vegan diet. I don't see it. If you're really an athlete like that, and that's your goal, you can do this on a vegan diet. You can do it. Protein's not an issue. It's very doable. All right, let's continue.
Some of the studies that you've looked at that look at, like there's one at 2.3. I've actually got it on my computer. I don't have it in my slides, but there's one at 2.1 to 3.3. There's two things about that. One, it's when you're in a caloric deficit because of gluconeogenesis. You pull some of the protein and you use some of the energy. So there's less protein, less for building. So if you're a bodybuilder cutting for competition, trying to get down to like 4 or 5%, then your protein requirements go up above that normal range because you're in caloric deficit. So you're using some of it for fuel.
And that's also the case with those carnivore people and a lot of keto people as well, right?
Yeah, and they probably adapt some because like in normal people, you can actually during exercise, you can only get 10% of your energy from the oxidation of protein into glucose. So where are we going? So the 2.3 to 3.1, by the way, it's 1 in caloric deficit, and it's 2 based on fat-free mass qualifications. It's not based on total body weight, which is what all the recommendations are on. So the 2.3 to 3.1 in some of these studies, if you did if someone's 15% body fat, it would bring it down. Right. It wouldn't be 2.3 to 3.1.
It's 3.1 based on the
fat-free body mass. So if you're 200 pounds and you've got 20% body fat, you only weigh 160 pounds for this calculation.
Got it.
Right. I think everyone appreciated that. So it's not the same calculation if you're doing it per kilogram body weight and you're not doing it for fat-free mass. If you're carrying a bunch of body weight, that's not fat-free mass. Sure.
Anyway, where we are. So you like to talk about the IAO in terms of these recommendations, and if you look at slide 102, Jamie, how am I doing, by the way, defending the film?
Excellent. You're really doing really well.
Good. Not bad for a dumb old UFC fighter, right?
You're not that old.
41. Going high. I just started. Look what I did. Look what I did to the top of my head. I just started.
Building implications for daily protein distribution showed upward of C1 of 2.2 grams per kilograms a day in cohort of young male bodybuilders, although the method of assessment indicator amino acid oxidation technique used in this study has not for determining optimal protein requirements. So it's in that same range.
So a couple of things. I'm not trying to point out that your IAO is off. I'm saying if you want to take your IAO, the indicator amino acid oxidation index, if you want to use that, then the upper confidence interval is still 2.2. So the scientific consensus, I just want to...
Okay, here's what I'll say about that. Go to Discord and go to IAO protein for bodybuilders. So for reference, I have the paper that Wilks likes to argue that by IAO standards, the upper confidence interval of the breakpoint is still at 2.2. Great authors of this paper, by the way. I know both of those people are really nice guys. They cited the Postprandial study. And the only thing I would mention is that, in fairness, so yes, it's true. The upper end of the confidence interval is 2.2. The lower end of the confidence interval, however, the breakpoint is 1.7. So that whole 1.6 estimate from previous, that's actually out of the 95% confidence interval. And so when people often go like, oh, 1.6 is the breaking point, actually it does make a difference with IAO methods because 1.6 is actually out of the 95% confidence interval. The low end is actually 1.7. But if you're going to go with the top end of the 95 confidence interval, I agree. Okay.
Like, make it very clear. It threw out a bunch of these numbers on high protein, making out that vegans couldn't hit that level. First of all, I've shown that vegans can get sufficient protein, and I've shown that the levels that the scientific consensus on the protein ranges for athletes are not in scientific consensus with these 3.3. But even if there were, there's no reason you couldn't get it on a plant-based diet.
I didn't argue that everyone should be eating 3.3 grams.
No,
per
but you
kilograms
did
a
argue.
day
You made
of
out that vegans
protein.
couldn't get enough protein, and you were wrong.
I didn't say they couldn't get enough. I said that it's less likely that they will get
But
enough.
it's not, though. If they eat like some of those recipes on your website, they're getting less. So you're being disingenuous, Chris.
Okay, the strong point to make here, the strong point to make to this, when someone says it's less likely vegans will get enough protein, there's not much, I don't know if we have any data on vegan bodybuilders compared to omnivore bodybuilders, but in the general population, again, just vegans get more protein per kilogram than omnivores. And yes, that's because they're leaner. And maybe that'll be different if we're talking about bodybuilders, but I don't know. You need some data to back this up. It's based on speculation otherwise. You can speculate, sure. But really what you should really be looking to do is look at some hard data. Look at actual populations of vegan bodybuilders and omnivore bodybuilders. The data exists. And look at how much protein they're actually getting. Yeah. I mean, the data already exists for vegans in the general population and non-vegans in the general population. So yeah, so I just don't see the case really being made. But anyway.
The first recipe was sweet potatoes, right? Was it?
No, it was had eggs in it. It was
the second one. Oh, okay.
No, it was a sweet potato and leek omelette. It was a taro and bacon hash, and then it was breakfast of champions with milk, yogurt, and eggs. So all I'm saying is, people that watched the last episode where he was bashing the thing, you can't get enough protein, and then they thought the quality's not good enough, and now we can get into that.
Let's get into that.
Let's get into that because this is the crux of it, right?
Yes.
Smash that. I just smashed the protein quantity argument, and now we'll get into the
We certainly smashed the protein quantity versus caloric intake.
Right, and so is it fair to say that based on what I've presented, you can get about as much protein from the things that I said?
Well, based on what you presented, you haven't lost an argument yet. There's not one thing that you've said that's incorrect.
And I even agree. If you're gonna...
Well, he's doing really well.
That's an overstatement, but that is still, it's still pretty funny.
Yeah. It's nice to hear that from the moderator of the debate whenever you're having it.
The highly biased moderator, too.
Yeah.
Is able to be honest about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it does say something. Yeah, props.
Want to take a 5-second derail to hear my personal favorite comment on our Corona video?
Okay, go for it.
This one's going to trigger you.
Okay.
It's just all your mind. You create your own reality. We're all healthy and loved. Might sound too extreme and diluted for some people, but you have the power. Smiley face.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Why? This has got to be. Wait, what's the account? Is it like a newly made account or something? Is it like we're getting memed on?
I have no idea. No, I think it's real. We got some. If you're not talking about 5G, you're a cop-out moron. I don't know.
Oh,
got the conspiracy theorists.
5G.
That other guy, that idiot, vegan Marshall, who posts the. Fear mongering, and I told him to debate you. He just replies with, haha, why so touchy? Well, you're gone. I mean, you're banned. Why would we ever put up with that, right? Yeah, so, I just don't comprehend, man. I'll never understand people who have strong opinions, but will not put them into a situation where those opinions get pressed, right? They just want to believe their delusions and they don't care. And it's shameful, it's disgusting, and that's the kind of people that exist out there. All you can do is humiliate them and move on. Let's
Yeah,
continue.
no, I knew. Yeah, let's continue. I knew they were going to be triggering stupid,
Yeah,
incredibly.
it's unbelievable. It's just the frustrating thing is that they just want to remain in ignorance, right? They're happy just being this little voice, just chirpy, chirpy, chirp in the comment section, right? But they won't actually come and ever defend their bullshit. And I mean, I can't help but think it's because it's easy to remain in your little delusional fantasy world thinking that you're saying coherent things in text. In a voice conversation, you got fucking pretzeled in 2 seconds and look like a total fucking moron, right? You can't just rant in text. Someone will force you to answer a question and humiliate you. Of course you wouldn't do that if you want to just live in a fucking fantasy world.
Come at me, Carnivore MD.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yourself.
So let's get into the amino acid content.
Oh yeah, love this. I was like really doing researching for this. I really enjoyed it because there were so many flaws that I was just like, I was a truth seeker, right? So I went for the search for the truth in combat. You know, Bruce Lee would say, research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is specifically your own. I don't care about all the George Dillman, BS about you can knock people out. I don't care about that. I don't care about all these traditional styles of martial arts. I care about what is the truth. Before I did this, I thought, oh yeah, paleo diet makes sense. I actually switched to grass-fed beef because of the omega-6, omega-3 ratios. I started eating air-chilled chicken. But then I read the research, and I wasn't biased by anything other than finding out the truth between the optimal diet for health and athletic performance and recovery of my injuries. And that is the truth, and that is what I have done. And now we're going to expose how you were incorrect about the protein quality. So you said, what's a little disingenuous about the film, they said every plant has every amino acid. Well, yeah, nobody disagrees with that. But it does have enough of each of them. Well, first of all, people do disagree with that. If you want to search, does plants have missing amino acids? People think that it's missing some of the 9 essential amino acids. So that's why we put that in the film.
Anyone who's been in the vegan community for a few weeks will have seen shit like that. I mean, it's fucking all over the place. Yeah, of course people make that claim.
You did. I said you left off part of my quote. I said every plant has every amino acid. That's what you said, but you left off the end of my quote, which said every plant has every amino acid in varying proportions. That is what I said, and you left out the in varying proportions, which again I think is disingenuous. He did not complete my quote. You handpicked part of my quote to represent your view.
I don't know if it's disingenuous or incompetent, but it's either way, it's misrepresentative.
Yeah.
Number one, do you think that plants are completely... a lot of people think, just like, that there's articles saying, well, no one thinks that protein gives them energy. I've got 5 studies here, the only 5 studies that I could find on the knowledge of collegiate athletes, and around 50% in each of the studies think that protein is what gives you energy. So people were saying, why did you put that in the film? That's a straw man. People don't think that protein gives you energy. About 50% of collegiate athletes think that protein gives you energy. That's why I addressed it in the film. Anyway, back to, you like the DIAAS, right? The Digestible Indispensable Amino Acid Score.
Or the PDCAAS, which preceded it.
Yeah, either of those, right? So can you just mention why you like it and what the benefits are and how it's determined? How is it determined?
So the DIAS takes into consideration amino acid profile and bioavailability.
Okay, and how is it studied?
DIAS did not take into consideration.
Right, it looks at crude protein. It looks at the total amount of protein absorption, not the individual amino acids, because different individual amino acids is absorbed differently. So that was one of the benefits of the DS scoring. We'll call it DS and PDCAS or whatever. So, but how is it determined, Chris? Do you know how it's determined?
The DS?
Yeah.
I don't know the details.
So,
I'm sorry.
It's like
almost like comedy.
It's almost like comedy. That someone is talking about these systems that does not know how. Okay, so slide 27, and I'll tell you one of the benefits of the DIAS. So, and I think you might have mentioned this, so I think you might know more than you're letting on. So one of the benefits is the oro-ileal digestibility. So the PDCAS, right, that took the whole digestive tract to what came out at the end.
What are we looking at here?
So look at this. So this is how the DIAS is brought about. So basically, past the ileum, you can't digest, your body doesn't absorb the protein really. It's digested by the bacteria, right? So this is one of the benefits of the DIAS versus the PDCAAS, right? The old system, is that they saw how much protein went through the whole digestive tract, but that wasn't reasonable, right? Because past the ileum, you're not digesting the protein.
Are you tracking that? Does that make sense to you? All right, I think
I can't say I'm totally following that.
Yeah. So basically, you can take protein, you can measure what goes through in the mouth, and then you could measure how much protein comes out the other end. Mm-hmm. Now the issue with that is you're not absorbing protein in your large intestine. You're not absorbing protein in your colon. You are absorbing protein in your small intestine. And so the issue with that is there could be bacteria in your large intestine that are absorbing the protein after your small intestine, and so you're measuring less than what you really would be measuring if you had measured out at the terminal of the small intestine rather than the large intestine. So you'd get more accurate representation of what your actual absorption would be if you measured at the end of your small intestine.
Wait,
rather than the end. Yeah.
So I understand absorption happens the whole way, but why would we only be interested in the absorption that happens in the small intestine?
Yeah, because after the small intestine, if it goes to the large intestine, and there's bacteria that can eat up some of the amino acids in the large intestine.
Oh, so there's loss in the large intestine that's not due to absorption. But isn't there also loss in the large intestine that is due to absorption?
No. You don't absorb in the large intestine.
Okay. All right. So basically you can it's like you have 0.1, 2, and 3, and if you measure between 0.1 and 3, then you're not getting the accurate measurement, because between 0.2 and 3 you have loss of the thing you're measuring. Right, so it's like you want the measurement between 0.1 and 2. So like
you want the measurement between 0.1 and 2, not at the end.
Yeah, it's like you just want to know from the mouth to the end of the small intestine what was absorbed there, because if you count the stuff that's absorbed in the large intestine, well, if you just look at the difference in protein, how much goes in the mouth versus out the butt. You're counting what was lost in the large intestine, which wasn't lost due to absorption. It was just like eaten by bacteria.
Right. Okay. Yes,
Yeah,
correct. Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Bacteria digesting, and you're not getting it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So basically, they put a port in the pig. Now, PDCAS was mostly in rats, and this is done in rats, and there's some in humans, but it's mostly done in pigs.
That
because
sounds
it's a more
ethical.
similar digestibility to human.
Yeah, what?
I said sounds ethical.
Yeah, sounds really ethical. Yeah.
And they're basically assessing how much of that protein was absorbed, right? And how much of the amino acids were absorbed. Now, some people make the argument, even the FAO point out the flaws, some people make the argument, well, pigs have a different digestibility rate, which is true, and they have a different amino acid profile requirement. Different. So some people say, therefore, they're a bunch of crap, right? I'm not going to make that argument. They've got a different amino acid requirement and a different digestibility capability, okay? So, I mean, would you think that score is the best one to use for humans?
It doesn't make sense.
Right, but I'm not going to even make that argument. I'm going to go with you and say, okay, DS is the best thing out there.
Okay.
Okay, so even though you can question that. So, you've said, this is a quote from last time when you were trying to back the film. It's all about protein quality, and this, as you said, is an established science, a firmly established science. He was talking to you, obviously, and you must have said it was established. They look at this, especially in like third world countries where protein deficiency is common, so they try to figure out how to address this. Okay, now, the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, what is their purpose? Chris?
To prevent nutrient deficiency in
Thank you.
developing countries.
Yeah, so hunger, I've got a slide if you want to prove, but it's basically defeating hunger, providing food security, not for America or for England, but for like the nation, you know, like 130, more than 130 countries, right, where people are starving, malnutrition. That is their purpose. So you've got to look at it through the lens of that. So if you can just put up slide 29. I just want to really back these claims up. I know the slides are getting kind of boring, and again, apologize for people just listening. But
Research focusing on protein malnutrition was largely conducted after the identification of kwashiorkor, and the realization that many children globally are suffering from subclinical protein malnutrition. To address protein malnutrition, the composition and digestibility of proteins must be determined.
Okay, so we go to the next slide. And this is, by the way, that was looking at the DS score.
That doesn't mean that the scoring system is wrong for American requirements, just because it was developed for prevention of kwashiorkor in malnourished countries.
Or, you can see at the top, can the DS score decrease protein malnutrition? Then they go on to say, Joe, do you want to do it?
Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations has developed methods to evaluate the protein quality of food items, and in 2011, the Digestible Indispensable Amino Acid Score (DIAAS) was recommended as a successor to their previous method.
Okay, so we're not in a disagreement right now. I'm even going to forego, I'm not going to argue about the animal having different amino acid requirements, even though that's that's pretty funny, right? Like, why are you assessing? Anyway, so I'm not going to have that argument. Okay. What I'm going to have is I'm going to go with everything so far. FAO, they're endorsing it over the PDS. A lot of experts endorsing it over the DIAS.
Okay.
Over the PDCAS. Right?
Okay.
So now in slide 31, it's made for starving children. Okay. This is what it's for. So I would agree. If you're in a country has low protein, you don't get 30 grams of protein a day. Let's just say that they put down the way that method before, which the FAO points out.
Yes.
So let's just say it's legit. I would agree. I would say get your protein from meat. I would agree, because that's what it was designed for. As you can see, in looking at post-exercise skeletal muscle,
intrinsically.
the DIAS
And yet
does
he's
not
willing
attempt
to
to
kill a
consider how
pig for
scores
taste
translate
pleasure,
into optimizing more
despite making
downstream
the argument
physiological
that-
targets of interest to a physically active personal athlete. So it wasn't designed for that. Starving people in countries where they were not getting enough protein, and they weren't getting enough protein as you would call high quality. Okay, so
Yeah.
why has your camera cut out?
Oh. It has.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
It's moving for me.
Can you just,
Yeah, like let me turn it off and turn it on.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah. Okay. I think it might have been my
Does
fault.
that work?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Okay, cool.
So would you recognize that it wasn't developed for that system
Yes.
based on the scientific literature? But you're inferring it now for the amount that...
I still think it's a relevant measure of protein quality because it
It
looks
is.
at amino acid profile and ileal digestibility.
Yeah, it is. It is. In starving country, when people are starving. I agree. But as you can see, it's not just... This is not my opinion.
It's still looking at amino acid profile, right? You can see that. It's looking at the relative content of amino acids in a particular food.
Yes.
And it's looking at the ileal digestibility.
I think it's got elements, even though the FAOs point out its flaws, and 10 years from now we'll have a better system, right? But, right, you agree, probably 10 years from now probably have a better system. Okay, but it's the best that they can kind of go of, but again, it looks at, and it's not just my opinion that it's not used for that. This is like, in sports medicine, 2019, and I agree, you're busy with other stuff, you probably haven't seen this article that came out in February. Right, have you seen this article?
Which is why empirical debates, by the way, exchange of studies should happen before
It's
the debate takes place.
insane, dude.
Yeah.
Oh god, I could just go on and on about this. People have have you seen the way they debate on Twitch? It's actually hilarious. It's like they just cite studies at each other, and they just think that they have to take each other's studies at face value. It's very weird. It's like, well, I have studies and you have studies, and it's like sometimes they try to undermine each other's studies, but it's like, where's the actual getting into the studies? Like, we can't it's just crazy.
Twitch setting new low bars. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said there, but it's like insanity. Yeah.
Setting low bars.
Yeah.
Setting lower bars lower.
I have
Okay.
not seen this particular article.
So basically, can you look at now in the 2018 Journal of International Sports Nutrition, slide 32, Society of Sports Nutrition? Because you like to say it's all about muscle protein synthesis, right?
That's an important factor.
Okay.
It has been proposed that muscle protein synthesis is maximized in young adults with an intake of 20 to 25 grams of high-quality protein.
About that, the squiggle's about.
About 20, 25 grams of a high-quality protein.
Okay, high-quality protein. Okay. Do you disagree that eating 4 at 20 to 25 grams of high-quality protein, whatever you want to take, high score, whatever, under your the scoring system that you agree with, do you agree that that is the amount to maximize muscle protein when it shows that does for a 4-hour window acute muscle protein synthesis?
Yeah, most of the sports organizations suggest that for acute protein intake.
But I'm going with the consensus. So if you take that 20 to 25 grams 4 or 5 times a day,
What is going on?
It's when you leave the window or something. It just I don't
Okay,
know.
I see it moving on my end. Do you see it moving?
You're good now. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's annoying. We'll
Try
try to make it better in the
What is
future.
that? That's
Okay.
80
I'll
to
try to stay on the window.
100, about 120 grams of protein a day. Is that enough for a big athlete?
Protein synthesis.
But is that enough for a 250-pound athlete? I would say no. So I'm not saying that it is. I think you need more protein than that, right? So
Muscle protein synthesis is only one factor.
Right. Can you tell me what the other factors are?
Tissue regeneration and repair, recovery.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're on the same page that 20 to 25 grams has basically been shown in a single sitting over a 4-hour window in what they call acute, short term. That's been shown to maximize muscle protein synthesis, and that is because 20 grams, and it's been shown actually you can get less with egg. You could get 17 grams or something. Because basically you're hitting two things. You're hitting leucine. You're getting 1.8 to 2 grams of leucine, which is basically like a foreman, right? It's like telling the others, hey, you should build protein. If you don't have any leucine, even if you had all the essential amino acids you want except for leucine, you wouldn't have the foreman telling all the workers to build the muscle. Basically, that's what leucine is. So you're getting enough leucine, and you're getting 8 to 10 grams of essential amino acids. That is what is important in the acute stage of muscle protein synthesis. You're getting 8 to 10 grams of, and we can get more granular down, it's 0.0 grams per pound of body weight, but this is basically accepted. In fact, they've shown that even if you're 400 pounds, you probably don't need even more than 20, 25 grams. For some reason, there's something in that number about getting the leucine amount. It doesn't really matter how big you are. So, there's a small percentage of people that say you might need a bit more, 2.5 or whatever, but consensus is the 20, 25 grams. And I'm sorry this is long, but it's important to break down. Okay. So So, by the way, just going back to your DS scoring, you're basically looking at like rules for jiu-jitsu tournament, like a gi jiu-jitsu tournament, and you're trying to apply them to MMA. So just because jiu-jitsu is involved in MMA, it doesn't mean that a scoring system for like IBJJF or whatever, that doesn't mean that that's the best scoring system for MMA, right? Is that fair, Joe?
Sure.
Yeah, you could get points for like,
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay. So essentially, and this isn't just my opinion, okay? This is scientific literature, not an article that you just pulled on examine.com. That's not how science works. You don't just pull up an article. So slide 33. And it's very clear. This is just very obvious. It's not. It cannot just be about short-term acute muscle protein synthesis, right? It can't be, because you wouldn't be hitting the 1.6 to 2.2. Yeah. So this states, acute anabolic responses are not necessarily associated with long-term muscular gains. The topic can only be answered by assessing the results of longitudinal studies that directly measure changes in lean mass with the provision of varying protein.
Yeah. So this is what I agree with. So it's just like there are proxies for things. So looking at amino acids in the blood is just the proxy for, after a meal is proxy, could be used as a proxy for muscle protein synthesis. Acute muscle protein synthesis is a proxy for lean muscle mass growth. But really what is, if you were to construct an evidence hierarchy, the most important studies would be the trials that look at the hard outcomes, what you're looking to measure, whether that's strength or whether that's change in lean muscle mass. Acute changes in muscle protein synthesis are just they're just a surrogate marker. They're a surrogate marker for the outcome of measure, and they will be superseded by studies that look at the actual hard outcome.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Dosages. Okay, so you agree that it's not just about short-term muscle protein synthesis. Okay, so what it is, Joe, it doesn't matter. At a certain point, it doesn't matter, because, yeah, if let's say you're going to have 4 times a day, and let's say you're going to have 160 grams of protein, and you have 40 grams, right, of protein 4 times a day, that's 160 grams. So if you're going to optimize muscle mass, and by the way, like how much muscle have you put on in the last 15 years? I'm not sure. Like basically, about the same. Right. Like, but anyway, let's just say that you're a bodybuilder and we're talking about like you're trying to stack on as much muscle as possible, because that's like, even like when I get like, I'm like 190, 193 maybe sometimes. Like if I go over 200, I just feel slow. I feel slow with the handgun. I feel like I just feel slower punching, like whatever. So it's not everyone's goal is to optimize muscle mass as quickly as possible, right? But let's say that your goal is, right? Clearly, it's not enough to do that. You have to hit the 1.6 to 2.2 grams, right? Right. Once you hit that amount, you have to do 2 things. You have to hit the short-term leucine threshold and amino acid in the short term, right? And then you have to hit the what are you doing, Jim? So you have to do 2 things. You have to maximize the muscle protein synthesis in the short term, and you have to get enough protein during the day, right? Of 1.6 to 2.2. Is that fair? Okay. So once you hit the 1.6 to 2.2, let's say you have 40 grams, it doesn't matter. You follow me? You even quoted...
so it doesn't matter the amino acid profile of the food? Is that what you're saying?
No, because as long as you hit the essential amino acid amount and the leucine amount in the 4...
And you can hit the leucine amount and the amino acid amount in virtually all of these vegan forms of protein? Is that what you're saying?
No. If you're having... Like, first of all, you could do it with, like... If you do beans, rice, and vegetables, yeah, you'd hit 2 grams of protein for, like, 570 calories. Now, again, you could... Like, you know that most athletes supplement, right? Yes. Like, I can got slides if you want scientific proof, but you would accept that, like, an elite athletes even more. So it's like over percent. So people are supplementing with protein powder anyway. They're supplementing with branched chain amino acids because it contains leucine, isoleucine.
Elite athletes are, yes.
Well, no, over 50% are supplementing with protein powder, and a higher percentage of elites.
Just athletes, period.
Yeah.
Okay.
And elite athletes are supplementing even more.
It's probably more. Right?
So, like, if your goal is to, like, do something and, like, take a creatine or, you know, a protein, or, like, you know, these athletic endeavors, like you pointed out, the thing that Patrick does, and we can get into, by the way, the misrepresentation.
Yeah, it is so weird whenever people point out, like, oh, you're going to have to get your pea protein. Well, like, okay, I mean, like, and sure, okay, maybe, but, like, everyone else on the non-vegan diet is pounding down whey, so, yeah, I don't get it. Anyway.
Of, from Robert Oberhurst into his, you know, Patrick's records, if you want, because there was a lot of claims that were made that were completely false again. So... Basically, if you get enough protein, if you hit one of the windows, if you hit the 1.6 to 2.2 with plant protein, you can hit the muscle protein synthesis. And like, all of a sudden, he's like, oh,
so you're saying there's no benefit in animal protein for an amino acid profile versus plant protein?
No, I'm not. Not if you're getting enough protein.
So you're saying if you're getting enough protein,
and
there's no benefit.
Wait,
okay.
Like, I'm even talking about
but if athletes,
you're getting
you're
the right
assuming...
ratio of, as you have acknowledged, of the right ratio of plant proteins.
No, it's not difficult at all. Like, I'm talking about leucine. If you were really messing up and eating, like, people just don't eat healthy, you might not get enough leucine. But like, if you're planning to become as big and as strong as possible, and you're dedicated, do you need a specific workout plan?
But this is only assuming that you're taking supplements. So we're assuming
No.
everyone's taking supplements.
No, you can do it with supplements.
Okay,
And
but you're not assuming that people are taking supplements.
No, you can do it.
Are you assuming that people are taking supplements?
No,
following these guidelines.
Okay, you can do it on a whole food diet, plant-based
Okay.
diet with
just food.
with B12. Like, right,
Just supplement B12, nothing else. You can achieve the same amino acid profile as meat.
Yeah, I mean, I want to touch on that. I'm not saying that the only
But
thing.
that is the argument, right?
No,
That was what he said.
But I just want to throw people off. Like, depending on where you live, you might want to supplement with vitamin D based on not getting enough sun.
Sure.
I just want to don't want to throw.
Everybody should do that anyway. Particularly D3.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, as long as you get that amount of protein, and again, if you're eating, if you're exercising to optimally build muscle, you're exercising a fair bit, right?
Yes.
You're burning more calories, right?
Right.
So you eat more calories. And I don't know where my slide is.
We're deep into the woods here, and this is getting really confusing.
No, I know, but the thing
here,
is-
the question was,
But
and
it's
this
so-
is what his assertion was, that the amino acid profile of meat is superior
Yeah, it
than
is.
the amino acid profile of
It is
plants.
in context.
In
That is what
context.
it's important. It's important when you look at the FAO and the goals that they're doing to try and stop world hunger. It is not important in the Western world, number one, and not important if you're an athlete and hitting but you're getting between 1.6 to 2 grams per kilogram.
So what you're saying is that as long as you're getting this 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram
Yeah.
of protein, whether
Yeah.
it's lentils or peanut butter or
Yeah.
that you have enough amino acids to achieve the desired results.
Yeah.
And it's essentially
Provided you are getting enough leucine.
the exact same as if you're hitting that 2.2 grams.
If you're
with
getting 2.2
steak.
grams, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Do you think that's true?
If you're getting 2.2 grams of protein and you're doing it, and you're not doing it in the way that you said, where you're not planning it and not making sure you're getting enough leucine, which is low.
Well, you wouldn't have to try.
I hate when people
It's
do
like- it's
that.
really
Do you think what I'm saying is correct? Well, what I think you're not saying is not correct. It's like, just give in. Don't waste our time.
Yeah.
really
Leucine
unfair.
you're saying is low.
Yeah,
in
I
certain
would say
plant
leucine
sources.
leucine is lower. I agree.
But there's a certain quantity that you will achieve.
There's
if
a
you get
plateau.
those
So there's a plateau. So it doesn't
Right.
matter once you've got that amount.
Right.
The other point that you had about protein quality is digestibility. So that's the last point that I want to address. Okay. How am I doing?
That's in the Discord.
How am I? What's up?
I said that one's in the
Okay.
Discord.
Wait. Which one's in the Discord?
Protein digestibility.
Oh no, but we're not out there yet.
I just heard the words protein digestibility.
Yeah. We'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
Okay. So slide 34. Because you basically claim that, okay, even if there are enough amino acids, you can't digest it as well. Okay.
The more precise data collected so far in humans assessing real specific oral ileal nitrogen digestibility has shown that the differences in the digestibility between plant and animal protein sources are only a few %, contrary to historical findings in rats or determinations using less precise methods.
Okay, let's go there. Actually, okay, protein digestibility.
Alrighty, Discord and protein digestibility. Yep, we're there.
Okay. All right. So just the money picture is table 2, and where all these sources came from, anyone can check them
Do
out.
you want me to open this table?
Yeah. Open the image, table 2. You see the image on.
Yep, table
bottom
2
left.
is open.
Yeah. So we look at the digestibility, and this gives you both. This gives you the fecal measurements, and this gives you the ileal measurements as well. Ileal measurements are the end of the small intestine. And the ileum is the end of the small intestine. So we can look at things like milk protein, and we can see the percentages: fermented milk, casein, another milk protein, soy protein, wheat, gluten. And remember, we're going to look at the
gluten. That's what you make seitan out of, people.
Yeah. Remember, we're going to look at the ileal, not the fecal, lupine and rapeseed protein. And you can see that a couple things. So you can see that the highest digestibility is going to be in milk protein, but the difference is not that much. It's within several percentage. And so, yeah, it's probably negligible. So let's continue.
Methods in humans.
Okay, and just so you know, I understand that you haven't seen this, probably, because it just came out last month, published by Stanford. So I get that you haven't seen it. Now, I'll take this one step further. There's only at most like 2 or 3% different in digestible plant protein. And you know how it's assessed in the pigs? They give them raw food. So they give raw beans, raw grains, And you have said one of the reasons that it's less digestible is because of trypsin inhibitors.
Yeah.
What happens when you cook?
It would definitely break them down.
Are you getting it? So when you heat food, the likelihood is, even though it hasn't been tested, we know that the digestibility is less in plants by a few percent. Only a few percent, not the 40% versus 100% that he was claiming last time. That's old science. I'm talking about current science, right?
Well, you shouldn't invalidate it by saying it's old. Don't do the fallacy of chronological snobbery.
Yeah, because you can tell what he actually means to say is that it's science that has been I don't know, like debunked, or it's not like, really you want to say something like
better methods have been used to more accurately.
There's a difference between saying old and up to date, right? You could have something old that is still up to date, or you could have something old that's not up to date, right? So, what I mean?
It basically
up
to
date meaning like representative of what we currently
just let's say accurate.
Sure.
Accurate based on what we know.
Yeah, but but I agree. Obviously, it's not the age that makes it wrong, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
and there's only a few percent difference, and they imagine that.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, just takeaways for Wilks are just like, don't appeal to how old something is. Don't appeal to consensus, especially if you can't show consensus. Don't appeal to what was the other one he was doing? Oh yeah, industry funding. Just stick directly to the data. What's most accurate? What's highest on the hierarchy? Yeah.
Yep.
Not only if you heated it, that you would get equivalent. You might even get more because you're killing.
Okay, so this is where I don't agree. I don't agree that this is going to happen. So go to even better though.
Okay. Discord. I really need a stream deck, dude. Even better though. Okay. Yep, I'm there.
Mm-hmm. So Wilk speculates that the digestion issues in the DS scoring system from the plant protein sources due to the lack of cooking. You mentioned the trypsin inhibitors. Mm-hmm. And that if cooking or proper preparation were used, we may even see protein digestion scores in even higher animal.
I don't even know. I think that's too charitable. I think he's saying we would. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's saying
we would. Yeah. Okay. I think this is unlikely in many cases. The plant protein source was in the form of a protein isolate, which would be actually even more digestible than something properly cooked. They used cooked plant proteins as well. Mm-hmm. So, for example, so I traced back the individual papers from one paper to the next from where these all came from on that chart. So in the BOS 2003, they used soy protein isolate, which was compared to milk protein isolate, and the BOS 2005 paper used gluten wheat protein that was cooked. And yet yet if you look at the ileal digestibility, they were still fall a few percentage points below animal protein product. Mm-hmm. So the overall point that Wilks is trying to make, that they are within a few percentage points of each other, not 40%, that's correct. The claim that if they were properly cooked, that you see even more, that's incorrect. That's an overreach.
Is it incorrect or is it unestablished?
I would say incorrect, because we have evidence, we have data when we actually look at what happens when we cook them.
All right.
And they still fall short.
Gotcha.
So that is, it's not just that we don't have data, we have data, and based on the available data we know it's incorrect. Okay, let's continue.
Killing the trypsin inhibitors by heating it. So that whole nonsense about the quantity, you were wrong. The quality, the DI score was not designed for that. It doesn't matter when you get enough protein. So as long as you get enough protein.
But by the way, I think he did say may. I think he did say we could see or may. So yeah, I think he did.
It seemed like he was saying like, okay, well,
it seems like he was yeah. I think he did slip
strong, but I might.
I think it sounded strong, but I think he did slip a may in there. We can go back and check. Yeah.
All right.
You're using measures for a organization that is looking at hunger. We're talking about if people have got enough. I agree. If you're in a developing country and you have very little diversity of plant foods and maybe not enough in this animal, you should be eating the animals.
You think this is all kind of bullshit just because it's like it doesn't matter. Why would we assume that because this system or whatever was created for people who are starving, that it wouldn't apply to people who aren't, right? It's like there's not a reason for that.
Yeah, unless you can show a specific reason why it wouldn't apply.
Okay.
It's not that it wouldn't apply just in virtue of the intention of what the system is made for.
Right.
Because
correct.
people
Yeah,
were
yeah,
intending,
gotcha. Yeah, that's clear.
Agree, but that is not what it was designed for, and it doesn't matter. The amino acid profile doesn't matter, and the digestibility doesn't matter when you get enough protein.
Let me pause you for a second
Sure.
here because you've been going on for a long time.
Yeah,
You
I
made
think
some
it's really
amazing
important.
points.
Yeah.
Chris, this is not.
Yikes.
This
I've been
is a
that
great
good.
quote right here. By
Yeah, this
I remember
has
this
not
one.
been that great for your arguments.
Chris's reaction, so good.
For your arguments. So what are your thoughts on what he said so far, and what are your thoughts on what he's refuted about what you had asserted about his show?
I think he's made some good points. And, you know, my original argument and what we started out talking about was, so you take the film and the claims of the film, the specific claims of the film, and then you also take the question that we started talking about, which
Okay,
was,
pause for a
is there
second.
evidence that...
So I confused that clip with another. That is a great quote by Joe, but the one where Kresser has the funny reaction is like at the end when Joe asks him, any thoughts, and he's just like, he just cucks. He's just like, no.
That's right at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get there.
Okay.
Okay.
100% plant-based diet is better than a diet that just and there were a lot of claims in the film that we talked about dairy products causing cancer, dairy products.
Again, remember there was no claim that dairy products cause cancer.
Yeah,
there was a claim that dairy products cause prostate cancer. We covered that in part 1.
Yeah, we went through that extensively. I still
Causing
remember
cancer, red meat clogging the arteries that we addressed and haven't had a chance to go into detail on in this show.
So,
But there was a bunch of stuff that you
but
did
Joe asked you
say.
about protein,
Yeah.
and we're talking about protein, and what you just did there, you segued into something else.
that. Pause it for a sec.
Yeah. That's
you,
what.
You should have taught him the word weasel portal.
Yeah, weasel pathway. He opens a little weasel pathway into something else. Yeah, into like dodging the question. Yeah, so that's good. It's good. Keeping. Got to keep your opponent centered on what if they're answering the actual question or if they're weaseling to something else,
Dude,
where they can feel more comfortable.
That guy the other day had the best weasel pathways I have ever
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's a good debate going up on the archives. You guys got to watch out for that. It's Avi versus Sverage fan. It's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Protein quality, including the amount and the ratio, and about protein quality and quantity, including digestibility and amino acid scores.
I think the protein quantity is still an issue, or the question of getting...
But how? I mean, you've got to have some logical arguments, Chris. I'm sorry, but I have disproven your rebuttal on protein and on B12.
I think the quality and quantity still matter.
Joe, sure.
Well, no one's disagreeing that qualities and quantities still matter. It's just you have to refute what he's saying about the quality and quantity to make case. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So even though that scale was developed for the FAO, there's still a difference, a quantitative difference in the amino acid profile.
I didn't argue with that.
Digestibility.
I didn't argue with that. That was not my point. Do you think I presented a good
But if it's about amino acids and it's about protein content and digestibility, if what he's saying is correct, then there really is no need to eat meat. That's what he's saying.
There isn't.
But
There just isn't.
That is his argument.
For protein. I mean, you can come up with some other, we can go at nutrient, if you want to look at nutrient profiles and then we can look at that. But you've got to admit, I presented some good arguments. Well, I mean, yeah, I got slides.
This is not going to be the last slide. Maybe on
Slides for days.
proving the outcomes as well. But if you just want to look at, this is not me. This is not me making up it's like, oh, I'm a vegan, I'm just making stuff up. There's a bunch of bullshit that's put out by vegans about arguments that are totally terrible.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. And honestly, I think vegans are the worst people for their own movement.
Hey, you don't need to say that, but it's true. Some vegans.
I think it's probably false. There's no way that vegans are the worst people for their own movement, because, I mean, they're there's
about how many people there are.
There's no way that you could, because you could just be like, okay, so if everyone were is there anything? So if everyone were vegan, right, that couldn't be bad for the vegan movement, surely, right? So it's like it would clearly be worse if everyone were carnists. So it doesn't seem like you could say vegans are the worst for their own movement. But vegans say a ton of really stupid shit, though.
He's I think he's saying of the people who are damaging the vegan community the most, if you had to rank them, some of those, I think the top whatever people would be more likely than not to be vegan.
Yeah, that's a bit different of a claim. Yeah, I mean, then that
Yeah,
that could be
that might be the claim he's trying to make.
But
Yeah,
at the
so that's
same
what
time-
that's how I took it. That's how I took it.
I think it's hard to quantify that, but yeah, okay, all right. Either way, we can all agree there's tons of vegans who say really fucking stupid shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree as well.
Like throwing blood on people that are wearing like fur jackets or whatever. I think it's ridiculous, right? But that don't lump me in and the film in with vegans in
You've
general.
done a far better job of explaining things here than you did even in the film.
Yeah, but it's very tricky.
It's very tricky because we don't have a lot of time. We're 3.5 hours in.
Right. Well, I would have made a 10-hour film, and it was upsetting.
I'm sure you
Are we
People
really?
say, "Oh, you." For example, methodological.
Whoa, how much do we even have left? Is it we've gone that far?
We have actually gone that far. A lot of it is because there's not much to comment on in the second half because a lot of things that it's just
Yeah, we've
like
been through a lot of it.
yeah things like
How much
Yeah.
is even left in this? I don't want to minimize it.
yeah we got like 20 minutes left.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
18 minutes left.
It feels like we just like completed the fucking Terry Fox run across Canada or some shit. Like,
Well, we're not there yet. We're gonna get it. We're gonna go through.
There's a lot in the last 20 minutes. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
That made. Half of the athletes you filmed, you didn't put in the film because they stopped being vegan. Completely not true. There are also a bunch of experts we didn't put in the film that we couldn't put in. And we didn't put them in because there wasn't room. It was like...
I understand.
In filmmaking, it's called killing your babies. There was amazing scenes that would have been really convincing that we couldn't put in. Like, the evidence in the film is far less than 1% of the evidence that
Why don't you guys do it as like a Netflix thing? Where you do
series?
like Wild Country, where you do like 7
No,
hours.
I would like... We're
It
considering
seems
doing
like
more.
a wiser thing to do.
Yeah, but I think, like, how many people are going to sit down?
How many people are going to watch this?
Well, I know how many people... I mean, I don't know how many
lot.
people
You know
watch
what
film.
else would be
But yeah.
good
So
about
when
that?
Yeah.
If you were to do that, then the things that were wrong in the movie, which he's conceded, he could correct. So it seems like it'd be a good opportunity. Just hash
No,
out
that's
little weird areas.
And by the way, that would be a great move for if you do plan, James, if you do plan on debating anyone in the future, this would be an amazing time to do that before someone else does it if you debate someone else.
I don't understand what you just said. That didn't...
So, well, yeah. So basically, what you just said, it would be a good time to correct the mistakes made in the film, right?
Yeah, because normally it's like
Yeah.
you make a movie, it's kind of a one-shot thing unless you want to do a big series. But if you do a Netflix series, you can, I mean, it seems like a good chance to correct some shit.
Yes, yeah. And another benefit to do it is if you're planning on debating someone about your film, it's better if you do that first before. It's better if you come out with the corrections yourself rather than have someone else do it to you in a debate.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, for sure. Because if someone tries to do a debate and be like, "Oh yeah, I already corrected myself there. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but I already corrected myself. Yeah. It's all on record that I corrected that mistake. Yeah, next. Like, so that goes over a lot better than
Do you think? Correct. Do you think that the film? I agree. Do you think that the film was generally accurate?
The major inaccuracies that I mean, look, my honest thing is I think it stretched the envelope. I think that over the overall general point that's trying to be made is that you can be vegan, you can be healthy, you can be an athlete. Yeah, sure, I'm on board with all of it. And I think the film did a fine job demonstrating that. I think there were some things in the film where I disagreed with, and there are some things in the film where I do think the envelope of science was.
Yeah, but I mean overall. Do you think it was overall accurate, or do you think it was overall inaccurate? Like, you think it was like, is it over or under 50%?
I don't know.
Okay,
I would have to just
it is safe to say you actually have some pretty major issues with.
I have. Well, yeah. I mean, that's not a secret. I was open to James about that.
I just wasn't sure about the scope of them. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, I was open to stuff there. Like, there's categories of things. Like, there's things that I think, okay, well, that's like, okay, I disagree. Straight up disagree. And then there are things like, okay, I disagree, but like, you could kind of change what your claim was, but like, I think everyone would take the claim this way.
Yeah.
And then there were things where I think like, okay, I'm not sure if I disagree, but I think you're pushing the boundaries on what we can actually claim based on where the science actually is.
Sure. Yeah.
So they'd fall into that category, and it's hard, and I'd have to go into specific. But anyway, yeah.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
We're talking about, like, we don't really have that much time left, unfortunately, because we are here at 3.5 hours in, and I have another one right after this. But what What about the film do you think he hasn't refuted your criticism?
Can we just put that last slide up?
Yes, please. What is it again?
It's slide 34. And also, I've got a bunch of slides showing that actually.
Here we go. There's no research to suggest that protein recommendations are different for athletes following a vegetarian diet than for those on an omnivorous diet.
Now, that is the handbook, the textbook that is used when you become a board.
So what this is basically saying is what you said earlier. The amino
matter.
acid profile, once you reach a certain point and a certain amount of grams per
and
kilogram.
you've got to reach that amount anyway, even with meat. That's the thing.
Okay,
So
I gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So and again,
what about the film do you think that he hasn't refuted your criticisms?
I mean, we can. I would love to do 8 hours.
because
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
I
the
don't
thing
know how
is,
productive that's going to be. There's the blood flow and endothelial function and
I would love-
inflammation.
I would love
There's
to get to
the
Let's get to that.
the meat and
let's do it. Let's do the erection
What is
scene,
the
the
other
dolphin
one?
scene.
The erection. That's the most scientific part of the movie. What was the other thing, Chris?
well, I mean, just talking about inflammation and endothelial function will take.
Can we
the
do
rest of the
that?
time.
Endothelial function, like
The
this, that's not-
cancer and dairy, the chicken and fish and cancer.
I can refute. Right,
the-
I can refute all of that, all of your claims. Do you want to look at the erection and the dolphin scene because they're related to endothelial function?
Why don't we talk about research about endothelial function?
Yeah. Okay.
And-
Great.
Okay.
That's related. So.
Okay, endothelial function.
So regarding
we'll close
the,
with this because these are gonna.
But can I
we're
just-
almost. It's already 2:30.
it's just a shame because like all the other claims he made were false.
All right.
What other
so
ones were
in,
false
in
that
the in the interview or in the film? I think when you said, and I've seen you say this on interviews, we have 22 years of research showing that a single high-fat meal impairs endothelial function. That study was called. It was from 1997. So
No.
that's
Multiple studies, and I can put them up if you want.
so that's 22 years.
But you used that study from like.
Effect of a single high-fat meal on endothelial function in healthy subjects. So this compared a 900-calorie diet. Both were on 900 calories. One group was eating 50 grams of fat, and one group was 0 grams of fat. The high-fat meal was an egg McMuffin, a sausage McMuffin,
I'm not talking about those.
2 hash browns, and a non-caffeinated drink, all from McDonald's.
Yeah, I'm not talking
Okay,
about
but
those.
that's
one.
one study.
You just
Okay.
picked one.
Well, which one are you talking about?
Well, I got a bunch.
Okay.
Well, I got a bunch that actually contradict that. So that's the same study, the same researchers did that study.
Let's just go over endothelial dysfunction. So,
Is that? Oh, sorry. That's not
Yeah.
Discord here.
no. I'm just going to go over briefly. So the artery your arteries have the ability to dilate in response to nitric oxide. So the normal response of an artery is to dilate. There's a phenomenon called flow-mediated dilation. And what happens when you postprandially, when you have a meal that's high fat especially, what happens is the artery's ability to dilate in response to nitric oxide is less. It doesn't dilate as much. And so they call that flow-mediated dilation, and the phenomenon where there's a decrease in your percentage of flow-mediated dilation is called endothelial dysfunction. That's what they call it.
Sorry, flow. It is what artery? Sorry, go say that again. It is which arteries?
Yeah.
What? Dilation,
So
they're getting bigger.
yeah.
Which arteries?
The one that's measured, you could measure different arteries, but I think the brachial artery is the one that's measured in a lot of flow-mediated dilation studies.
And it's the effect of
but
the
it's-
dilation of that artery happening when?
Happening in response to nitric oxide.
Oh, okay.
And then they measure.
By flow
You can
mediated,
measure.
Do they mean mediated?
Yeah,
by
there's
the
a
flow of nitric oxide.
There's. Well, no, it's the terminology is flow mediated dilation. They standardize it to a specific system, and then they just look at your percentage of. They look at your percentage of change, and then they look at it. So in postprandial studies, they'll look at it before and they'll look at it after, and then they'll compare the difference, the percentage difference in something called flow-mediated dilation. It's just think of it as your artery's ability to dilate. Now, what has been correlated to cardiovascular disease is fasting endothelial function. So when they see decreases in fasting endothelial function that's over a chronic period of time, that's been correlated with cardiovascular disease. What I'm not convinced is correlated with cardiovascular disease is postprandial endothelial dysfunction. I haven't seen any evidence that it has been shown to be correlated with that. And the only evidence I have seen when someone posted it to me was a statement that it was, and when I tracked down the sources for that, it was some triglyceride peak in mice. And yeah, so really, really weak.
Yeah, okay. Mouse data.
And so I'm actually not convinced that, and again, like the reason for this is because a lot of times when we look at postprandial markers, they don't actually pan out to fasting markers. One example for that is IGF-1, mTOR or IGF-1. When we look at the activity of that postprandially compared to fasting, when we just look at the postprandial ones, we don't actually see problems in cancer. Darth Davis, do you ever want to debate me on this? I'll be happy to, as I've already mentioned. So I'm not convinced that like this whole segment of the debate, in my view, is actually something that's irrelevant. I actually don't think that there's any reason to believe that they're debating over something we should actually care about. But they're going to do it, and we're going to go over it.
Okay.
Which was really annoying when I was looking this up, because it's just really frustrating going into depth on studies that I don't think actually matter. But anyway.
All right.
We'll do it, though.
Well, let's delve into those meaningless studies.
Yeah, let's do it.
Found that taking vitamin C and E after the high-fat meal completely eliminated the effect that it had on it.
Okay, vitamin C. Let's do it.
Discord.
Okay. Go to postprandial endothelial function.
Mm-hmm. We're there.
So Kresser cites the following paper to claim that the addition of vitamin C and E negates the postprandial endothelial dysfunction completely. Two issues with that. Number one, there were very high doses of vitamin C and E. So there's a gram of vitamin C and 800 IUs of vitamin E used. You wouldn't be likely to get these doses outside of supplementation. And supplementation with these doses for each meal that you consume would be a little bit absurd. And number two, the endothelial dysfunction was not negated completely. Okay, so this is the thing. It may not be, I worded this wrong. It may not be negated completely. It was reduced by 71%. However, that wasn't statistically significant. So it is compatible with it being negated completely.
Okay.
Better points, here are better points that Kresser could have made. Balsamic vinegar and salad reduce the postprandial endothelial function to a similar extent, a 65%, which also is not statistically significant, which is compatible with it negating it completely. By the way, in the original report, this was the sentence that Dr. Greger deleted when he made a video about olive oil.
You should just take a minute to describe what happened there. People will be interested.
What happened was Dr. Greger made a video about olive oil, about how it's bad, and he was reading about how it was bad, and there's this blank thing at the end of the paragraph, and you think that the paragraph ended there, but it didn't. If you actually look at the original paper, the paragraph goes on to say, when olive oil was consumed with salad and balsamic vinaigrette, it did not impair endothelial dysfunction. So he just deleted that because he didn't like that wording. Now, he could try to make the case that, it was just mitigating it. So, because the FMD was the difference was reduced to 65%. However, it is compatible with the statement that it did not impair it because it wasn't statistically significant. He didn't like that wording, so he just deleted it. That's incredibly dishonest. So,
I hope one day we get Avi versus Greger. I really do. But we'll definitely do the plant-based cabal videos. We'll try to make them nice and streamlined and stuff too, because these big fucking streams, the troopers like these, the people who are like just hardcore like interested in what you or I are doing, but like we want those plant-based doctor critiques to kind of be like good, quick, snappy sort of things. That's spammed around easy. Yeah. Okay. Let's
plant-based doctor cabal. Okay.
Yeah.
The flow-mediated dilation differences in the diets with the added balsamic vinegar salad were not statistically significant. Yep, that's what we just mentioned. And there's very little evidence to suggest that postprandial endothelial dysfunction actually predicts or is causative to problematic health outcomes in healthy individuals without pre-existing medical. Okay. All right. So let's continue.
Endothelial function, which suggests that a healthy omnivorous diet with plants wouldn't have the same impact. There was a 2019 review, and this will be at Kresser.
Okay, hold on. Okay, are we good?
Yep.
Okay.
SEO/game changers. Adding nuts, avocados, olives, berries, spice blends, orange juice, red wine, and protein, including milk protein, to a high-fat meal.
Pause it. I'm understanding the names of all of these channels. Spices though, berries though, olives though, avocados though, nuts though.
Prevents endothelial dysfunction.
Oh man. Okay, here we go.
Function and oxidative stress.
I-
We've got several studies that suggest that
All right, let's go. Just go through them. With nuts. Okay, I should be. Yeah. Why? I don't know why it's doing that.
I'm on.
But am I good now?
Yep. Wait. No, you're not. You're not.
Okay, hold on. Okay, what about now?
Nope.
What?
I can try.
I can leave
the
an.
window.
I can turn my camera. I can turn my camera off and turn it back on. Does that work? Does that work?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Nuts. I mean, we could just go through this real quick because
All right,
I don't.
Let's
get any
fucking
of this
do
matter.
it. I'm on Discord.
They claim that-
I'm in nuts though.
There's only one study here that's really worth going through because it has to do with fasting FMDs.
Okay.
So with nuts, I actually think that under certain circumstances that did pan out, and the study is referenced there. And so it did reduce postprandial endothelial dysfunction. For avocados, let's go to avocados and look at the graph over here. Thing to note about avocados is the percent of flow media dilation was improved with the avocado. However, you should know that it's not the control group itself improved, and yes, it improved greater, but it's not like the control group was actually causing any endothelial dysfunction compared to baseline. It's just that there was a difference in improvement. So everything we know based on that, you would probably think it would improve, even if the control group did cause any endothelial dysfunction compared to baseline, but the control group didn't, in the case of avocado, cause any endothelial dysfunction compared to baseline.
Okay.
Take that with whatever you will. Olives, I couldn't find anywhere where olives were in the review that he mentioned, so if anyone can get me this paper that he's looking at, I looked for it, couldn't find it. For berries, though, you do find a similar thing. So you see the FMD, flow media dilation, for the baseline and the baseline 2 hours, 24 hours after eating, and there's really no difference in the control. And for the raspberries, there was a little bit of improvement. And so again, the control didn't actually cause any endothelial dysfunction. It just kind of baseline. So you can say that they improved, but technically speaking, there wasn't any dysfunction to reduce or to prevent from that the control diet did. The spices claim does pan out. The spices blend study, it wasn't a study on postprandial endothelial dysfunction, and FMD was measured in one of them, but he does have a separate study on his website, Kresser does, which and it does appear to improve endothelial dysfunction, so I grant that claim. With milk, we're going into milk, though.
I've got the graph up.
Yeah, and so this was specifically, it wasn't on milk, it was sodium caseinate. It's not whey, it's sodium caseinate. So it may be that it's just impairing, like it's just slowing down digestion, and that might be why it's changing flow media dilation postprandially. But you should know that soy protein was basically as effective at preventing postprandial endothelial dysfunction as milk was. That's part of the study that isn't mentioned here. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of that matters anyway. Here's the one study that is worth going through, so we will go through it.
One here, Westfall, 2006.
Let's see. The study suggests that low carb improved endothelial dysfunction.
Oh, low carb. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You want me to open this first one?
Yeah. Let's go through the. Yeah. And in fact, I have the. If you don't have the full text, I have the full text in Volek 2009, the PDF.
I don't think I can see the.
It's in the Discord. It's in the Discord. Yeah. So go to Discord and go to Volek 2009. I actually have it as a PDF that you can download.
Okay. Now let me just get us over there. Okay. Nice. Yeah, it's up.
Yeah. And I want you to go to, so a couple of things to note. Let's start with table 2.
Let me find
so you scroll down.
I'm looking for tables. What do we have here? Figure 1. Wait. I don't know what I'm
Table 2?
Table 2. Oh, I see. The tables are these things. Okay, table 2. Yep, got it.
Yeah, so there's a couple of differences on the diets that they used for this low-carb study. The first difference is in the carb-restricted diet, the CRD. The energy differential was greater, so they restricted calories more so than they did with the paper addresses this, but we'll get to they restricted calories more than they did with the low-fat diet. And then if you go to the results, you can see the results for post. This is for triglycerides and insulin, and then let's see if they have the postprandial.
I'm trying to go down to the results. Where are we? Where are the results going to be here?
I'll show you.
I'm just going to keyword search
Let's
results.
see. Brachial art. No. You can go to figure 3.
It's not detecting that. Okay, 1 second. Table 2, figure 1. I mean, what the?
It's page 1775.
Okay, here we go. Yep, I got it.
Yeah, vascular responses to a high-fat meal before and after 12 weeks in subject consuming carb-restricted diet.
Yep.
So that's the upper panel carb-restricted diet baseline. These are the brachial artery diameter, and you can see that's at baseline, and then they're looking at it at week 12. Okay, so this it was performed before a high-fat meal and at 1.53 and 4.5 hours postprandially. So you can see that the carb-restricted diet, you can see how they have higher values in CRDs, in flow-mediated dilation compared to the low-fat diets. If you look at the brachial artery diameter from the upper panel. So the upper panels are the carb-restricted diet. You see it at baseline. So you see at baseline, when they gave them a meal, they had increased. And then you see at baseline, again, pre-meal, when you gave them a meal, they had better flow-mediated dilation compared to the low-fat diet. However, what you'll notice here is, and this is mentioned by the study itself, the fasting flow-mediated dilation actually wasn't. It actually wasn't different. It wasn't. There was no difference in fasting flow-mediated dilation between the low-fat and low-carb group, which really is what matters. And then, as far as the calorie difference, the paper addresses that. They try to say that, okay, well, they didn't notice any difference there in the study, and they also cite other data to show that there's no difference in flow-mediated dilation in fasting, but that's in fasting. It's not in postprandial. So they're comparing apples to oranges there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go back to Discord. Oh, wait, do we still look at this particular study at all?
No. We can put that study.
Okay. Now I'm in the low carb section. Do we have more to go through here? Let's see.
There's also another study. We're not going to go through this study, but should always mention counter data when there is data. There is counter data that low carb diets can worsen endothelial function. So take that for whatever it is. And then we'll continue with the video.
Okay. Protein wasn't mentioned as one of those things. Okay. All right.
We can go through that. Protein,
should
though.
we go through protein?
I think they use biomarker surrogates. Then the proteins were all egg isolates, so that's fine. I mean, that's not the only one study. Honestly, the only one study really worth reading here was the low carb study, and the reason that was the only study worth reading, on my view, is because that's the only study that looked at non-postprandial endothelial dysfunction, which has been shown to actually correlate with cardiovascular, which was not different between the two. So,
holy shit!
Dairy and egg proteins improve endothelial.
Yeah, I know, right?
Function, 2015 controlled trial with 52 subjects. Dietary proteins, including milk and egg, improved endothelial function. 2006 study adding dietary protein to a high-fat meal prevented postprandial endothelial dysfunction. We have 2009 study followed subjects for 12 weeks. A low-carb diet improved endothelial function, whereas a low-fat diet decreased it. 2007 study with followed subjects. I can go on and on and on.
Okay, so another thing is like when this is happening, like he's getting shotgunned right now. He's getting gish gallop.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, and he's gotta stop it. He's gotta go one by one. He say, listen, you're gish galloping studies at me. Let's go one by one.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It's hard to understate how important that is, right? Like if you're in a debate and someone else is making too many points for you to reply to at once, which is really just more than one point at a time, unless you have really good tracking, because especially if the point branches out into an inference tree, it's like good luck if there's fucking two of them. Like, yeah, like if someone's shooting a ton of points at you, if you can only address a segment of them, then everything else sits there muddying the waters, right? So this is like a foot soldier kind of tactic. For example. Like when you debated foot soldier on organic, he just tried to throw as much shit at the wall as possible and just hope by, galloping through points and just throwing shit, something would stick, something would remain unaddressed, and that would make it seem like there's an issue with what you're saying. I don't know if that's his conscious process, but that's the effect of it, right? So it's important if someone's trying to sophist you in that way by... just like spamming you with shit. My volume is too low, really? I can turn it up a little bit. Actually, I can't. You're fucked. Sorry. So, yeah, if someone's trying to sophist you... Yeah, my bad. If someone's trying to sophist you like that, you have to realize if you don't stop them, the effect is just going to be a ton of unaddressed stuff, and that makes it look bad for your side, no matter what. So you just have to say, well, I'm happy to go through every single thing you raise, but we got to go one at a time. One at a time. What do you want to choose? Just pick one. Right, that's how you need to respond to that. Yeah.
Yep. So let's watch James Wilkes get gish gallop.
Yep.
He just is rattling on.
All of these studies show that animal proteins don't increase and decrease endothelial function.
So you have to know more about nutrition.
And it's really frustrating in the plants in the context.
Okay, so first of all, you compared low carb and high carb. I'm not for health. I'm not promoting high carb or low carb.
That wasn't the point. The point is that low carb diets that contain animal products.
Although, to be fair, I don't know if he's actually looked into the low carb versus high carb study and compared the amount of animal protein to each one. I'm not sure if he did that. But anyway.
Seafood consumption protects against
I feel like
endothelial
making the same consensus point as I always make. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, seafood. I actually didn't find the paper for seafood consumption and endothelial dysfunction, but regardless, it's I think I'm almost positive it's a postprandial study, so I wouldn't really care. I didn't see it on Chris Kresser's site either, so I'm not sure where he's mentioning this. But anyway, if someone can find that study for me, I would appreciate it.
Cool.
Damn it, seafood is an animal protein. Mediterranean velocity, blood flow markers of atherosclerosis. These are studies in the peer-reviewed literature.
Yeah.
Lots of them.
So what's wrong with this?
So the industry-funded studies, what you do if you want...
Wait, who said any...
I skipped it. Okay, but yeah, okay, so the industry-funded studies, like, first of all, you haven't seen any of these studies. You don't know that they're industry-funded studies. These are studies that have just been gish galloped.
Yeah, it's just James is just kind of flailing because he got gished. Like he just needs to, needs to like just one by one slowly. What is the exact study saying? Right? Can you establish your point?
Yeah. All right. Let's see where we were.
Because I'm wondering.
Wait, what?
I'm wondering, is that just like a panic reaction, like industry funded, don't know how to read the science? Like, is that just kind of like he's just getting overwhelmed by Kresser gish galloping him, and he's just kind of like, I can't pushing his head, but it might just be like that he's just having a bit of a like reaction to getting frazzled by too much shit flying at him right there. Who knows? Whatever. Who cares?
In any case, that's not the reaction to do. The reaction.
Yeah, don't appeal to industry funding. Don't appeal to consensus if you can't demonstrate.
Especially when it's clear.
Just one at a time. What exactly is being said?
Yeah. Don't, especially when it's clear that you haven't read the studies yet because you're being gish galloped with them. Don't claim that they're industry funded.
It's funny because he's also gotten advice like this in the context of fighting when he was like learning, right? Probably at some point. Because people do shit like if you're rolling and someone gets on top of you, it's easy to like panic and like burn a bunch of energy scrambling way too hard to try to get out and stuff. Like, so it just happens when you grapple. And I mean, someone probably just said something to him at some point, like, don't panic when you're in that situation. Just calmly, do what you've trained to do. Like, you know what moves are available to you, or whatever they would say. It's just funny because you picture, like, he's probably gotten the same advice in another context. There's a lot of overlap between the kind of advice you'd give someone in, like, a physical and a mental fight. I could talk about that for a while. And the annoying thing, though, that always most annoying thing, and it's like a Sam Harris quote, and I think that it's my favorite Sam Harris quote. He just points out, like, the frustrating difference between a physical and a mental fight is that in a physical fight, victory is decisive. If you knock someone out, that person's not really in a place to say they're going to lose. They know they lost. Everyone knows they lost. In an intellectual fight, you can do the equivalent of knocking someone out, and they can just keep going as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a frustrating thing.
The question, like, if protein compares with zero function, why is that milk and egg don't do that? George Dillman did a study, showing that, like, the heart rate went up when he did a knockout without.
Did he? I'm not tracking. Did Wilks claim that protein impairs endothelial function?
I'm not sure if he claimed that it impairs. It's more the case that animal sources of protein impair.
Okay, whatever. It's fine. Yeah, let's continue.
Yeah.
Not touching someone. Just because you can show studies that I can't, like, I haven't had a chance to read and dig into, doesn't mean my point is valid. I have shown studies. No, I gave, like, and it's been accredited by the Defense Health Agency.
Yeah. Right? This is all not meaningful yet.
Yeah, it's not addressing.
So you think that they, like, the science, basically your
but to be fair, Kresser or Wilks could start, like, appealing to astrology at this point. He's owned Kresser so badly it wouldn't fucking matter. The debate's won.
Yeah.
but what he's saying right now is silly. But it doesn't even matter. He wrecked him so badly.
You failed miserably to debunk the film, right? I have proven again and again that your points were invalid. I have presented data with healthier meals. You thought I was going to go to feeding someone McDonald's. I didn't. I showed one with just basically dairy, increasing.
And I've showed 3 or 4 studies with dairy proteins that don't interfere with endothelial function and actually improve it.
The bottom line is, Joe, right, that at each step of the way, Chris is not in line with the scientific consensus. Okay. Not on protein recommendations, not on definition of carbohydrates, not on endothelial function, not on heme iron. He's just like, you should.
By the way, notice that if he didn't go with the whole endothelial, postprandial endothelial function memes, that he wouldn't have had to deal with any of this. He wouldn't have had to deal with any of this gish gallop.
Because he even make claims about the endothelial stuff?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the film was about involved endothelial.
I didn't watch the actual fucking film. I just let you review it. If he made those claims, it's fair territory. Kresser can go for it.
Yeah.
I thought for a sec you were gonna say it's another instance of James could have just gotten out of it, like with the dairy thing, by just saying I didn't even claim that. But no, if he made the claims, it's fair. If Kresser can go for it.
I don't know. I don't actually know if he actually made the claim that it will if he made the claim that animal proteins sources will increase, then he would have to defend that or retract the claim.
Yeah.
But if he didn't make that claim, this would have been like he wouldn't have had to deal with this last little annoyance.
Yeah. So there's the 2 lessons. The one is to watch the claims you make, but that's obviously that's kind of trivial thing to say. But the other and more important one is like always very carefully examine if what they're saying actually is a claim you made. And if you're not sure, don't just grant that it's a claim you made. Just be like, I'm not actually sure if I said that. I may have, but hearing it right now, I don't know if I even agree with that or intentionally said that, right? Like, always be very sensitive to if you're actually being attacked on grounds of something you have said, right? Because you don't want to get baited into defending some fucking weird shit.
Yeah. Shouldn't be having him on to say he said himself he's not an expert in nutrition. He is unable to read a single study and understand it. I am not qualified either.
That's a mischaracterization.
Okay, then tell me with the confidence interval.
Kresser should have just stayed quiet. Don't like why it's like Wilks is sitting there with this forest plot bludgeon in his hand. Why would you possibly even try to say I know how to read a study? You know you're just gonna get punched in the face with a forest plot, right? It's like why?
And this is where Kresser has him here too. It's like he actually has him on the FMD meme. Like the FMD memes aren't really clear that it's not. They don't correlate with CVD postprandially. It shouldn't be something that matters anyway. But oh man, you should have just stuck to the FMD memes. Why go back to this?
Yeah, why open yourself up to get fucking kicked in the balls with a forest plot?
Oh god.
In the forest plot.
So, listen, I'm presenting. I've never.
Anyone can say anything about
I've
studies.
not put myself out. Like, I'm the.
Oh,
the
Avi,
expert
we got a
that
really
ate.
powerful argument in text. Look at those crazy vegan eyes, lol. It's like Joey Carbstrong. Do we have crazy eyes? Do your eyes look crazy? Do mine look crazy?
I guess so.
I
guess so.
It's funny because people say that, but you know, if you gave them like a sample of just eyes and just asked them to determine which are vegan or not, that they have
which are the vegan eyes?
Fucking idiot. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, buddy. Show me your eyes.
Yeah, look into the eyes.
Yeah.
Eyes though.
But that's what people
doing
think.
these studies.
That's what people think.
Doing these studies
But
in the
that's
same
what-
way that you did. You collected information
From the scientific
experts,
consensus,
which
from
there-
leading
there
researchers
is-
with thousands of
there
hours.
is not.
Keeps going on the consensus.
There are many experts that would disagree.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with like climate change or
It's the
whatever.
same- No, it's not the same at all. It's absolutely not
Okay,
the
but-
same. That there's the consensus of experts that agree that we should be on a
Why
100%
consensus? Just data.
plant.
Yeah, seriously.
This is turning into a last minute like fucking scramble or something. I don't know.
Yep.
Based diet is the same as the consensus on climate change. It's not even close to
The
that.
parallel is that the scientific consensus says that we should be in predominantly plant-based diets, and that vegan and even vegan diets are healthy for all stages of life cycle. I've shown that you can get enough protein. I've shown that the quality DS scoring doesn't matter. I've shown that the B12 stuff that you got is completely wrong. Like, what else do you want me to show you? You want me to show you that, like, even despite having lower creatine levels, because people have pointed out in the film, oh, well, you said as long as you get all the amino acids. If you didn't point out that vegetarians have lower creatine stores, therefore it may affect performance. They didn't test it. I've got a bunch of studies where it has been tested, where they had vegetarians and meat eaters had equivocal fat-free mass, equivocal power output, equivalent time to fatigue, despite lower creatine levels. And we know that creatine is ergogenic. I've also got other studies showing that when vegetarians actually take supplemental creatine, they get increased gains of over 1 pound of muscle over the meat eaters. So despite lower creatine, which we know is the most studied supplement,
Right, they're getting that because their intake of creatine is lower.
yes, and so when they
So
take
they're
creatine,
supplementing, they see a bigger response. You could look
Right.
at that the other way. You could say they should have more creatine in their diet, and then they wouldn't need to supplement with that to get the bigger response.
right, but I'm saying it points out that despite lower creatine stores, which we know are ergogenic, which are performance enhancing, they still have equivocal fat-free mass, muscle, and power output and time to fatigue. And when you add creatine in, you get a benefit. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should be.
Yeah, so it doesn't follow from that if they were eating meat, then they wouldn't need to supplement. It's intuitive, but it doesn't actually necessarily follow. Because if you look at the baseline of the meat eaters compared to the omnivores, of the vegans compared to the omnivores, if they're still equivocal, then it doesn't actually follow. But anyway.
Taking creatine, but if you're trying to build as much muscle as possible, I think you should. And by the way, meat eaters also tend to supplement that are trying to bodybuild with creatine as well. So I'm saying that despite the fact of lower creatine, which we know is, would you argue that's like the problem?
By the way, in the doses that people consume with creatine, you're not really going to get anywhere close to that with dietary creatine. I mean, people consume like massive amounts of creatine compared to what they get from meat. Yeah.
Probably the most well-studied and best supplement that we know of that can help
Muscle
creatine.
gain.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So despite lower creatine, people on plant-based diets can still have as much muscle mass. And when they hit creatine, they get even more than the meat eaters. And I've got a bunch of science to prove that too. So basically, Joe, if someone watched the last episode where he tried to debunk the film for 2 hours and 50 minutes, do you feel that I fairly addressed a lot of the critiques? And I've going to address a lot more.
I do have to say, James has a good sense of, I don't know, I just want to call it like social acuity or something. He's very aware of like, okay, we're wrapping up now. I need to like wrap everything into a like how I've made this guy look incredibly stupid and ideally get Joe to sign off on it. Like he has a good sense of like what will be the like optics wise like good thing to do here. So little credit where it's due there. Yeah.
More, he talks about nutrient quality. He likes to refer to like diet quality. He says that we're low in.
Forest Law sense mention.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, vegans are low, typically in B12 and D, calcium and zinc, because they eat a bunch of shit. But meat eaters are low in about 9. So he likes to point to a nutrient score which favors a paleo-type diet.
That's not comparing equivalent vegans. Vegans and vegetarians in general are they have a higher drink less, they have a higher diet quality in general.
Right,
because they do all comparing apples to apples.
Right, because they do all of the things that are better for health, including eating a plant-based diet.
Because
so he thinks that just the only one thing that they don't do better is eat more plants.
What do you say when you lump in meat eaters with people that eat a diet? When you say meat eaters, you're not talking about people who are eating organic.
Yeah, but when we're talking about
the average
muscle
American
gain,
gets 60% of their calories from ultra-processed and refined foods.
Yeah, but
that's why they're nutrient deficient.
That's what they are saying
You
when
just
they
said
compare
that.
meat eaters
You're not comparing like Joe Rogan's and his diet versus.
Again, I don't know how people are continue to make this claim, but okay.
An equivalent.
No, yeah, but all I'm pointing it out is that you are saying that vegans are typically more deficient in certain nutrients. They are in certain nutrients, but that's because a lot of people aren't smart and don't like.
So you're looking at the overall group of them versus the people that are doing it as recommended by these studies that are showing the appropriate amount of amino acids they're doing it, where they're balancing it out and
you
doing
variety. You don't have
planning it.
I don't even think about it. A wide variety, and if a really good source actually is nutritionfacts.org, and he's got this.
Hey.
It's a really bad source, by the way.
Also, just Avi, are vegans actually disproportionately deficient in anything currently in modern times? Because I know we were. Are we still?
I would say for B12. Well, actually, I don't know.
I thought the current data on B12, it's not clear anymore that.
Because
is widespread or whatever.
Yeah, supplementation is widespread. Also, like a lot of their exclusion criteria, like they excluded vegans who were supplementing. Vegans are probably have lower but not deficient levels of zinc and iron. I'm not sure if the rate of vegans who are iron deficient hits in statistical significance. Same thing with zinc hits statistical significance. I'd have to. When I looked at that, it was pretty. It didn't actually show statistical significance. I don't think they did an analysis of that when I looked at a meta-analysis for iron. And then for zinc, it still took several standard deviations just to get to low blood levels of zinc for vegetarians/vegans. So I'm not sure that they are, if you just only looked at the vegans and omnivores who are deficient in those nutrients, you would get statistical significance. I'm not sure about that. So if it were true, then I do think there are ways of addressing that, though. But at this point, I'm not even sure if that's the case.
Yeah, I guess with the deficiency thing, it's like there's 2 points. There's the are you necessarily deficient and are vegans disproportionately deficient? And obviously necessarily deficient, there's no evidence for that. Disproportionately deficient, that could be true, but it's like who really cares? All that means is like you should just make sure that you eat properly.
Yeah.
Useful thing called he doesn't like that because it's not in alignment.
What's wrong with nutritionfacts.org?
There's a lot wrong with nutritionfacts.org.
It's just it has a very strong plant-based agenda.
Yeah, because they follow the science. So anyway,
do not follow the science.
not standing by Wilks on that one, hey?
Oh, I'm not. No, I don't think I follow science. But I don't think Kresser's critique of nutritionfacts.org is a good one either. I don't think just saying that it's a plant-based agenda, like a plant-based agenda, though, like that's pretty weak.
Yeah, of course.
But anyway.
Terrible.
Forget all of the useful videos that are on there. They do like 3-minute videos for people to learn about the science. It gives all the references. But the really useful thing is he has like the daily dozen, about what all of the evidence is showing we should be eating. Whether you're eating meat or not, all of the evidence showing like how much legumes, how much fruit, how much vegetables, the flaxseed and, these types of things. So it's just like, it's like a fridge magnet you can throw on your fridge. And
James, you made an excellent point. Chris, do you have anything to say in closing?
No, thank you for
that was the one.
I really appreciate your time. Sorry if it felt a bit combative.
No, you knocked it out of the park. You did a fantastic job.
Simp now.
I think you did.
Simp.
Yeah, that's the one.
My bad.
It makes me consider. Well, let me explain my position. Coming in here, I felt like you'd put your film out. I felt Chris felt the same way. Having you in here while he debunked it was just going to be a waste of time. You had put your position out. He was going to chance to debunk. But I've also felt that would be unfair to not have you come in and explain and refute his debunk.
Is this Joe Rogan like trying to I don't know if I'm reading this right, but it almost feels like Joe Rogan right now realizes that he's just created the circumstance for Kresser to get humiliated in front of millions of people and feels a bit bad about it, and it's like he's trying to explain why it wasn't an unreasonable thing to do. Like, I want to give him a chance.
I think the read that's not the read I'm getting. The read I'm getting is that if you actually watch the original debunk, Joe Rogan was very much on Kresser's side, and he was like agreeing with him on everything. just trashing the film with him. And now when Wilks came on and just like trashed Kresser and just smashed him in the debate, he's like, I think he's trying to like put a little bit of distance between himself and
yeah, okay.
It wasn't me, it was just this guy.
I don't know. I can only speculate. This just speaks to how differently people interpret, like, I don't know, like body language and tone and stuff a lot of the time. Yeah, okay.
Debunking, and I think you did a fantastic job.
I really appreciate having me on.
My pleasure.
And love to come back on and talk about combative and martial arts
whatever,
sometime.
man. Let's do that next time.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
One thing I just want to quickly want to explain one thing from the first video that people had a hard time having an issue with.
Well,
so do you remember
that's the end, right? Just play.
Yes, but there's wait. I'll play the end when I'm done explaining something.
I think it's the
first
outro.
Video. No, it is the outro.
Oh,
It is the outro. Right. But I remembered there was something I wanted to go. Okay, so do you remember back in the first video when he, because I said I would explain this, because people were having a hard time understanding.
Okay.
Do you remember when they started having this like seemingly petty argument over the percentages of if it was dishonest to lump them together with the dairy and cancer?
Yes. Yeah. Of course.
Okay. And the reason even though it wasn't the claim that dairy causes cancer, even if it was the claim, I do think it would have still been dishonest to lump them. And the reason I maintain that, people are having a hard time understanding why, because they would say, okay, well, if the claim is that dairy causes cancer, if like 80% are either neutral or beneficial, then it would contradict the claim. And it actually not necessarily would contradict the claim, because if all of that is represented in, or at least the vast majority is represented in being neutral, let's just say they were studies and not meta-analyses. If they were just studies, that actually doesn't necessarily contradict the claim. The reason it doesn't necessarily contradict the claim is because the point estimates could just be on one side of the effect size, and then their confidence interval could just be overlapping with the null, and that's why all the studies are just saying, oh, well, it's neutral, when in fact, if you were to meta-analytically summate them, you wouldn't get something that's neutral. So that's why it's important. Whereas it wouldn't be the case if you were to make the same claim and specify, oh, by the way, the vast majority of these studies are just like all the way on the other side. It makes it less likely if it was beneficial, because the point estimates would actually be on the other side of the null, and you couldn't really make that case. And now I understand it's more complicated because these were meta-analyses and not individual studies, but the same principle can apply if you just look at the individual studies within those meta-analyses. So you really have to, really getting down to that claim actually just requires investigation, because you could actually make the case like, okay, well, we can still take all the individual studies with some inclusion and exclusion criteria from each individual meta-analytic summations and then just summate them, and maybe that would come out to the other side. And I don't think it will. I actually did look at these, and I don't think it is going to come out. Definitely not that dairy causes cancer, and that's not my view. I just want to say like that is the reason why, because if you actually do just lump it in, you don't actually, the reason I still think that's a bit dishonest is because it actually is not necessarily something that contradicts the claim if you actually understand how point estimates and confidence intervals work and how that can change when you summate. Anyway.
Now, I don't understand how all those things work, so I'm not going to comment on that, but we'll just leave that comment standing.
Okay.
Can we play the outro to feel good?
Yeah, we'll play the outro. Yeah, okay, here we go. It's been a long journey.
Bye, everybody.
Holy shit.
Wow. Okay. And guys, let us know which format you prefer. Do you prefer us taking the risk of getting YouTube to black out the screen? Or do you prefer to have the filtered, changed voice, changed pitch, and changed video to avoid that and do it as we were doing it now? Which kind of format do you prefer? Try to also equalize the traits of having better camera equipment and try to factor that in as well. Don't try to have that influence your decision. I know people are noticing Isaac's very nice camera.
Glorious camera. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
it makes
so
such a difference, dude. Yeah, I also got a light. Like, if you turn it off, it looks, you can tell the shot's like not as good.
So this happens approximately once a year now. These vegan debates happen.
Although
so
I
I
need
guess
to
you'll
adjust it. It's like the I don't know if it's the white balance or the saturated. I need to bring it down because it's too white. But I'll figure that all out. It's still way the fuck better than the camera I had before.
Yeah. So give us feedback. Let us know which one you prefer. Let us know what you think. And wow, it's been quite a journey. And until next time, I'm sure there will be a next time.
Yeah.
And there will be many more. We have a lot to do. We have a lot to take down. There's a lot of bad memes out there.
We're coming for the plant-based Dr. Cabal.
The plant-based Dr. Cabal.
All right, dude. Well, fucking thanks for putting in all the work, Avi. I enjoyed sitting there and understanding, 10% of what you're saying, and I think everyone else appreciates this also.
I think you understood a lot more than that, but okay. All right.
Okay.
Until next time, everyone.
All right. Bye, guys.
Let me end this stream.